Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. False Eunuch. With many children, I'm as happy as a fish in water. Chapter 21. Although Lin Chen had never learned how to train soldiers, he knew very well that the combat effectiveness of the army lay in the execution of orders, prohibitions and discipline. Therefore, he planned to follow the methods of military training in his previous life and first turn these civilians into military-trained college students until the order was issued. Facts have proved that this method is very useful. Under Lin Chen's training with carrots and sticks, the soldiers who complained endlessly still gritted their teeth and persisted. Because Lin Chen gave too much. Eat 3 meals a day. In the morning, I had thick porridge and pickles to fill my stomach. Lunch is pork, cabbage and multi-grain rice. You can even have a bowl of dry rice at night. In just 5 days, Lin Chen could already see a hint of elite appearance in these soldiers. Of course, he knew very well that the soldiers at the moment were all fake, and they were not useful. Just when Lin Chen was still a little dissatisfied with this. But in the eyes of people like Wei Cheng and Yang Ji who have read the art of war thoroughly, they would see the reincarnation of the military immortals. You must know that in ancient times, the most difficult thing was to make soldiers obey orders. At least Wei Cheng and Yang Ji didn't think they could command 5,000 soldiers within 5 days. Lin Chen naturally didn't know what these two people were thinking. After seeing that the military training methods were working, Wei Cheng was allowed to take over. Wei Cheng not only served as the commander, but also as the instructor. The so-called instructor is a position that leads soldiers to practice martial arts. After Lin Chen stepped down, Yang Ji came over and made a rainbow fart. What kind of flattery that the Lord is really the reincarnation of a military immortal. Lin Chen felt a little embarrassed when he heard this, and immediately raised his hand to stop. I heard that there are more and more victims outside the capital now. Yang Ji heard this and nodded subconsciously. Master Dutong, tens of thousands of victims have gathered outside the west and east gates of the city. Speaking of this, Yang Ji shuddered a little. Because he has seen it. I have seen those victims who had no choice but to build thatched shacks outside the city in order to survive, and they were looking for food everywhere. They almost ate up the bark of the trees on the outskirts of the capital. What's the price of food in the city now? The price of polished rice is 800 yuan per shi, and the price of brown rice is 300 yuan per shi. Yang Ji said carefully, while not forgetting to look at Lin Chen's eyes. This price is 5 times the normal price of food. Lin Chen's face was full of coldness. Not to mention the victims, even the people in the city began to complain. Report. Just when Lin Chen was thinking about something, a small official came with a message. It was none other than Shangguan Wan'er's oral message. Order the troops and horses of the 5 cities to go out of the city to maintain order for the victims outside the city. Drive. The Wucheng soldiers and horses division had been missing for so many days, and this was the first time that the entire division was dispatched. I saw that the bronze ghost-faced ones were all leading the way, followed closely by the commanders in bright armor behind them. At the same time, the soldiers of the 5 cities soldiers and horses division, who were holding long spears and wearing iron-clad armor, attracted the attention of the residents of the capital. These soldiers from the 5 cities military and horse division were different from the rogue soldiers they had seen before. In a tea house on both sides of the street, Zhao Guangyi looked at this scene, and the smile he had been smiling while talking and laughing suddenly disappeared. He is also a man who knows how to fight. The soldiers of the 5 cities military and horse division were clearly civilians 5 days ago. Brother Zhao, what are you doing? The people at the same table noticed Zhao Guangyi's expression and couldn't help but be stunned. Several people present were all military attachés from the Beijing camp and close confidants of the Zhao brothers. Snort. Suddenly, Zhao Guangyi, who snorted coldly, pointed at Lin Chen's retreating back. That Lin Chenjia, who killed 6 commanders before without asking the military department, is really arrogant and domineering. When the confidants at the same table heard this, a look of surprise appeared on their faces. It turns out that the commander-in-chief of the 5 cities military and horse division made Brother Zhao angry. Are you angry? That's fine. As a guard at the east gate of the city, I will definitely vent your anger on Brother Zhao when the time comes. Lin Chen, who didn't know that he was being taken care of, directly led the 5,000 soldiers of the 5 cities soldiers and horses division out of the city. Lin Chen, who had not left the 5 cities soldiers and horses division during this period, had just had the opportunity to see the scene outside the city. It's shocking. Lin Chen looked at the row of dilapidated shacks with a solemn expression. Just before, many soup kitchens set up by officials here were demolished by the victims. There were even some noble ladies who came to give porridge and were almost robbed by the victims. If the soldiers from the Beijing camp guarding the city gate hadn't arrived, the consequences would have been disastrous. Therefore, the troops from the 5 cities were called in to maintain order and arrest the troublemakers among the victims. The victims who were originally picking up rice grains scattered on the ground near the porridge shop were so frightened that they ran away quickly when they saw Lin Chen. Many victims hid in shacks for fear of being targeted. Wei Cheng Yangji. The humble position is here. After Lin Chen recruited all the soldiers, he promoted Yangji to the rank of commander. At the moment, Lin Chen is considered bull in Yangji's heart. Bring soldiers into the shed to arrest people. Do not harass women and children or rob property. Anyone who violates this rule will be executed. If you have a ruddy complexion, arrest them. If you commit crimes among the victims, arrest them. If you make trouble in the porridge shed earlier, arrest them. Lin Chen's words made Wei Cheng, Yangji and other commanders feel shocked. During this time, they also had a general understanding of Lin Chen's temperament as the leader. The ruler of my family never makes fun of anyone. Here, then, there was a flurry of excitement. Many busy people from the capital came to watch the fun. Wang Wu is also very tall now. After hearing the order conveyed by the 100-people general, Wang Wu was a little confused. Why arrest the rosy-faced disaster victims? Wang Wu cast his doubtful eyes on an older man in Xinei. The latter smiled and said nothing. Just follow the orders of the governor. Where does all this nonsense come from? Hundreds of people passing by would hear Wang Wu's words and immediately slap Wang Wu on the head. After being beaten, Wang Wu felt depressed, but he took action. The victims, who were originally extremely frightened, gradually discovered that these soldiers were acting strangely. There was no driving, smashing or looting as imagined. You should know that in ancient times, a saying was widely circulated. That is, the bandits are like combs, and the soldiers are like goads. It's no joke to borrow someone else's head. On the other hand, this group of soldiers seemed to be quite responsible. This made a group of thick-armed men poke their heads out and burst into laughter. It seemed like I saw a coward. No idea. Wang Wu saw that these thick-armed men all had rosy faces, and they were finally able to vent their frustration from being beaten by hundreds of generals. Catch them all. The man with thick arms. Mom, these officers and soldiers are bullying people. These victims, who can live in the most spacious and bright areas of the shanty towns, are naturally not honest people. Originally, he was a rogue in his hometown. Facing the menacing soldiers, my legs suddenly became weak, and I regretted that I should not have come out to watch the fun. However, Wang Wu didn't have a good look on these people. Don't fight, don't fight. Master, I have money, let us go. The leading man took out a few taels of silver from his pocket. Seeing the silver, a soldier present had a look on his face. But he didn't expect that Wang Wu would slap him in the face when he saw it. You really don't want to chop off your head with the sword of the governor, right? Soon, there were people kneeling in front of Lin Chen, about 100 people. Poof! A head of a soldier from the 5 cities military and horse division was chopped off by Wei Cheng and hung on the flagpole. This person was a general with hundreds of troops. He saw the beauty of a woman among the victims and made some teasing remarks. So he lost his head. Wang Wu felt sad when he saw this. Especially the soldier who just wanted to collect the money turned pale at this time, as if he had been through the gates of hell. Where's Yang Ji? Lin Chen saw that Yang Zibu had not returned to the team yet. But a loud shout was heard in the shack. The thief is so brave. It was Yang Ji's voice. There was a clanging sound of swords and guns, causing nearby victims to flee. Just looking at the circle surrounded by the soldiers of the 5 cities, Yang Ji was brandishing a spear, and the spear went straight to the throats of the 5 people. On the other hand, these 5 men holding simple knives and wearing coarse cloth and short jackets are not weak in their moves. A third-rate warrior. Lin Chen's 6 senses swept over these 5 people, and the corners of his mouth raised slightly. It is definitely not a good thing for a warrior to hide among the victims. Hold on, you are no match. When Yongji saw that his hundreds of men were willing to step forward to help, he immediately shouted back. After a fight, Yongji knew very well that these 5 people were all warriors and they cooperated well. These 100 generals like myself are just the top civilian men selected during this period, they are just more powerful. Against a warrior, I don't know how to die. Buzz. Just at this time, several rays of silver flashed at the edge of Yongji's sight. Hiss. Yongji took a breath of cold air, feeling the skin being stung by the sword energy emanating from the silver light. As for these 5 third-rate warriors, they covered their severed hands with horrified expressions on their faces. Under Wei Cheng's odd eyes, Lin Chen's eyes did not change at all. After learning that it was his own lord who took action, Yongji couldn't help but swallow his saliva. I thought Dutong was an ordinary person, but I didn't expect him to be a top warrior. As for his ability to pick leaves and use them as swords just now, even if he wanted to kill himself, he could not do it with just one hand. Take it. Lin Chen's soft words sounded in Yongji's ears. Yongji felt a shiver in his heart, the blood in his body became stronger, and he stepped forward with a gun. The 5 men, who were missing weapons and had one of their hands broken, looked pale. Want to escape. Unfortunately, how could he escape Yongji who wanted to show off in front of Lin Chen? The 2 stubbornly resisted and were stabbed to death by Yongji. The remaining 3 people had their legs and bones broken by Yongji and were thrown to the ground. Lord Tutong, what are the origins of these 5 people? Lin Chen asked. Some victims of the disaster just reported to me. The 5 of them were the ones who made the noise to smash up the soup kitchen. Oh, Lin Chen raised his eyebrows slightly. Interesting. Watch them, don't let them kill themselves. After saying that, Lin Chen looked at the victims who were controlled by the soldiers and kneeling on the ground. Each of these people looked horrified, as if they didn't know why they were caught here. Search the shacks where these people live. Lin Chen glanced at these rosy-faced people and gave orders to the soldiers. Soon, there were results. Wow, some soldiers had particularly ugly expressions and came out holding many flesh and bones. After putting it down, he immediately vomited. These are all human limbs. After seeing this, the expressions of some people kneeling on the ground changed slightly. Behead those who eat people. Without Lin Chen taking action, several princes' palace guards couldn't help but draw their swords and stepped forward. These guys actually dared to eat people. Not allowing him to defend himself, the blade fell. Lin Chen knew very well that once people are extremely hungry, they will do some unscrupulous things. However, after these people settled in the stilts, they still engaged in cannibalism. Looking at their rosy faces, you can tell how many victims they killed and ate. Now, Wang Wu finally understood why Lord Dutong wanted to arrest these rosy-faced victims. Lord Dutong, these people have a lot of property in their homes. Soldiers came out carrying various gold and silver jewelry. You will come forward and explain the source of these properties. Sir, a certain family was a businessman before the disaster. Take your things and go back. Lin Chen didn't even look at the other person and spoke calmly. Sir, these are also the property of a certain ancestor. Aha, a leaf pierced his throat. Send these stolen goods to the yamen and let the owners claim them. After all, it can be said that people were killed. So much so that some of the busybodies who were watching the excitement had unpleasant expressions on their faces, and they only regarded the masked ones as killers. Wei Cheng, you led 2 soldiers to maintain order for the victims here and protect the soup kitchen at the same time. Remember, the rules remain the same as before. Lin Chen took one last look at the victims of the shack, and at the same time called on the soldiers to take away the 3 disabled warriors. I understand the humble position. Suddenly, Lin Chen, whose heart was slightly moved, turned to look somewhere in the shack. Then, Lin Chen withdrew his gaze and rode towards the east of the city. He still has to clean it up. So close. Just where Lin Chen was looking, there were several figures. One of them, wearing a bamboo hat, exclaimed in a low voice. The dog officer's 6 senses are so sharp. The man who spoke was wearing a bamboo hat, but his voice was as clear as pearls falling from a plate. Only the tall and thin Buddha who was protecting the woman could not help but smile bitterly. Holy girl, the Holy Duke ordered us to investigate the disaster in Gyeonggi and wait for the opportunity, but he didn't ask you to follow him. I also want to kill the dog official to vent my anger on the people. The woman became unhappy. Hearing this, the Buddha duo had a hint of helplessness in their eyes. Saint, please don't embarrass our brothers and return to Zhongnan as soon as possible. But that dog officer called Dutong killed 5 brothers in our sect. Before the woman could finish speaking, the fat Buddha said solemnly, Holy girl, the unfathomable power of the 5-city military commander is unfathomable. He is a first-rate warrior. Even the rest of us combined are no match for him. Hearing this, the woman just stopped. At the same time, Lin Chen also dealt with the victims in the east of the city as usual, leaving 2 soldiers to maintain order. After doing this, Lin Chen turned around and looked into the city. At present, he has cleaned up the cannibals among the victims. Now it's the turn of the city's cannibals. For example, those grain merchants in the city who buy low, sell high, and hoard grain. Targeting illegal grain dealers was originally Lin Chen's plan in the disaster relief policy. Given the current situation of the victims, just giving out porridge is definitely not enough. We have to start with these grain merchants who stock up on thousands or hundreds of stones of grain. Since they dared to raise the price, Lin Chen would naturally have an excuse to attack them. As for the princes and ministers behind these guys, Lin Chen didn't care at all. He himself charged into the battle for Li Jiao. Why shouldn't the emperor block these criticisms for him? Besides, doesn't he still have Shangguan Wan'er on his head? Thinking of this, Lin Chen waved his hand calmly. The soldiers from the 5 cities military and horse division suddenly came toward the city with murderous intent. Lu's grain shop. This rough grain was only 300 cents per stone just now. Why has it increased to 50 cents now? Is it too expensive? Just don't buy it if it's too expensive. Nowadays, there is no need to worry about selling the food in the capital. Do you want to buy it or not? The waiter in this shop spoke arrogantly and had an impatient look on his face. The entire grain shop street was crowded with people buying grain, fearing that they would not be able to buy even 350 cash of coarse grain if it was too late. Buy it, I'll buy it. The rickety man gritted his teeth, took out about 100 large coins from his lining pocket, and prepared to hand it to the waiter. Call out. At this moment, an arrow suddenly appeared and quickly nailed the signboard of Lu's grain store. The dust falling from the plaque happened to make the waiter look disgraced. This movement made everyone present dumbfounded. The 5 cities soldiers and horses department is handling the case, and those who are idle should stay away. Then groups of soldiers appeared and surrounded the entire Lu's grain store. What is this for? When the waiter saw this fight, he was so frightened that he swallowed his saliva and ran into the inner hall in a panic. Shopkeepers. Lin Chen looked at the different expressions that the people buying food looked at him after he appeared. Most of them were afraid, but also surprised and doubtful. They didn't understand what the officials from the 5 cities military and horse division were doing here. At the same time, the shopkeeper of the grain shop, who was summoned by the waiter, looked pampered and round, with a melon pipe hat on his head and a silk robe, and he looked like a human. Seeing Lin Chen's official uniform, the latter showed no timidity at all. He smiled and stepped forward to say hello. I heard earlier that the 5 cities military and horse division has appointed a new governor, and I was lucky enough to meet him today. Even though the shopkeeper was smiling, he was cursing in his heart. This new leader comes with soldiers, and he doesn't look like a leader who can spend 100 taels of silver. Lin Chen ignored the other party's politeness, stepped forward, reached out and fished for the grain bag. This so-called brown rice is also mixed with chaff, sand and gravel. Lin Chen didn't bother to check other bags and asked the shopkeeper coldly, "What's the current price of food in the capital?" When the shopkeeper heard this, he glanced at the waiter next to him. The latter was quite clever, using a flattering voice to talk about the current price of food in the capital. Reporting to Lord Dutong, the current price of polished rice is 800 yuan per stone, and that of brown rice is 350 yuan. 800 coins per stone for polished rice. 350 coins for brown rice. Lin Chen repeated it in a voice with no emotion. Yes. The shopkeeper seemed to feel something, and a thin layer of sweat broke out on his forehead. Take it. Lin Chen suddenly felt bored and waved. Wow. The armors of the soldiers from the 5 cities military and horse divisions collided, and under the astonished gaze of many people, a total of 20 people of all sizes in Lu's grain store were tied up. Lord Tutong. Lord Tutong. Why is this? When the shopkeeper saw that Lin Chen was serious, he immediately complained and complained. Ah, Lin Chen just sneered and asked Wei Cheng to take out the official announcement issued by Shangguan Wan'er a few days ago. Read. Wei Cheng took the order. Starting from the selected date, the price of food in the capital should not exceed twice the par price. Violators will be severely punished. When the shopkeeper heard this, a bead of sweat dripped down his fat cheeks. Of course he knew this notice, but he just didn't take the approval document personally issued by the disaster relief Imperial envoy seriously. Businessmen, don't just pursue profit. Not to mention that the price of food in the capital has increased 5 times now. When more victims of the disaster arrive in the capital, the price of food may increase 10 times. In addition, Lu's grain store had a backer behind it, which was enough for him not to take this official announcement seriously. Lin Dutong, do you know who is the owner behind Lu's grain shop? Seeing that Lin Chen was determined to get him, the shopkeeper stopped pretending and immediately started threatening him with a fierce expression. Really, Lin Chen had already guessed that the shopkeeper would say such things. After all, merchants who can buy grain shops in the capital will take care of themselves and make friends with the ministers of the DPRK in China. Some businesses are even white gloves thrown out by officials. Lin Dutong, are you really going to do this? Seeing that Lin Chen was indifferent, the shopkeeper wanted to say something, but Wei Cheng slapped him so hard that he burst into tears. Take these profiteers and evil businessmen back to the 5 cities military and horse division, search the granaries of Lu's grain store, and confiscate all the grain. After Lin Chen finished speaking, he called over 100-man general and asked him to lead 100 soldiers here to sell the seized grains at a fair price. The people nearby who heard Lin Chen's words were stunned for a moment, and then burst into deafening cheers. Master Lin is really the reincarnation of Bao Qingtian. When Lin Chen heard this, he shook his head inexplicably, his eyes fell on these common people, and his tone became more serious. Each person can only purchase 1 bushel of this cheap food per day. If you buy more and take more, you will be killed. These murderous words immediately silenced the people present like ducks being strangled by their necks. Come on, the Lu family is not the only merchant in the city who sells grain at high prices. Lin Chen said with a sneer. Wei Cheng was slightly startled when he heard this, although he felt that his master did this so that the people of the capital could survive. But, sir, if you come down like this, the people behind the grain store will definitely regard you as a thorn in their side and a thorn in their flesh. When Lin Chen heard this, he glanced sideways at Wei Cheng and laughed. Is it possible that I have to take into account whether their ideas are clear or not when I do things? Lin Chen has a clear understanding of his current identity. That is a cool official like Tang Yang, a sharp knife. After all, Li Jiao doesn't regard himself as a disposable object that will be thrown away after use. Otherwise, Lin Chen would not be allowed to cover his face with a mask. For a while, the Li family grain store, the Jia family store, and more than 20 grain stores, large and small, were sealed off by soldiers led by Lin Chen. The prisons of the 5 cities' soldiers and horses department can hardly be filled. At the same time, the news that the governor of the 5 cities' military and horse department raided profiteers and sold cheap grain spread in the capital. Even if there are countless people coming to buy cheap food, they are afraid that if they arrive a moment late, they will not be able to buy it. Fortunately, there were soldiers left behind by Lin Chen to maintain order, so no stampede occurred. Naturally, there are also those who want to make a profit by cheating. However, these people used their heads to frighten those who had evil intentions in the dark. Such cold tactics immediately made Lin Chenjia's name a topic of conversation. The vast majority of ordinary people are naturally grateful to Lin Dutong for his grace of survival. But in the eyes of some people, this is not the case. Snapped. Pingyang Hu Zhang Ziding slammed the official kiln teacup in his hand to the ground. Porcelain pieces flew and tea spilled all over the floor. This Zhang Ziding is the legitimate son of the previous generation Marquis Pingyang. The old Marquis passed away a few years ago, and it was his turn to inherit the title. Among the martial arts in the capital, Zhang Ziding is also a moderate figure. Because of this, many merchants in the city were affiliated with Zhang Ziding, and they paid a lot of tribute every year. Now that his financial path has been cut off, how can he prevent Zhang Ziding from becoming furious? Master Hu, I don't know who Lin Chenjia relied on to confiscate all our food. A wealthy businessman said with a sad face. That's right, someone immediately agreed below. All of these people were grain store owners who were raided by Lin Chen. If the variable Lin Chen didn't appear, the food they had hoarded could be sold at sky-high prices. Zhang Ziding heard the news and naturally got involved in this business. When Zhang Ziding thought that his tens of thousands of taels of silver might be wasted, he couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. Lin Chenjia, right, a small 6th-grade military officer dares to act like this. Don't worry, I will go get the confiscated food right now. Hearing that Zhang Zi was determined to stand up for himself and others, all the wealthy businessmen present suddenly turned from worry to joy and started smiling happily. Master Marquis, if we can get these grains back, we are willing to offer an additional 10% every year. Easy to say, easy to say. Zhang Ziding saw that these wealthy businessmen were willing to pay, and his gloomy expression improved. After seeing off these wealthy businessmen, Zhang Ziding was certainly not idle, calling his servants to change clothes. Prepare the car, I am going to visit Captain Gao of Yadian Yamen. At the same time, Lin Chen was leading people to check the grain, which totaled 180,000 dan. It seems that this group of grain merchants started hoarding grain as early as when the Gyeonggi province was flooded, preparing to find a rare commodity. It's a pity that before the sale started, Lin Chen grabbed all of them. These grains are just a drop in the bucket for hundreds of thousands of disaster victims. Lin Chen frowned slightly as he looked at the grains that had been stored in the warehouse. If the supply is limited to a daily basis, it will be enough to meet the needs of the people in the capital, and part of it can be used to provide relief to the victims. However, this amount of food is not enough to delay the delivery of grain to Beijing in 2 months. Not to mention, the number of victims outside the capital city is only a small part at the moment. Suddenly, Lin Chen couldn't help but shake his head as he thought of something. The grain merchants don't have enough grain, so don't they still have official warehouses? The 3 major official warehouses in the capital are enough to feed millions of people for 3 months. As long as part of the grain is allocated from these official warehouses for disaster relief, it is presumably enough to maintain the livelihood of the victims. Just when Lin Chen was lost in thought, Wei Cheng walked in hurriedly. Grown-ups, what's the matter? Lin Chen looked at Wei Cheng with a hint of surprise in his eyes. The grain that was escorted into the warehouse was detained by the yamen of the palace yamen. After saying this, Wei Cheng couldn't help but bow his head in shame. After all, he couldn't handle such a small thing well, which was a shame for Lin Chen's trust. Unexpectedly, the expression on Lin Chen's face was very calm at this time, as if he had already guessed it. As the saying goes, cutting off someone's wealth is like killing one's parents. These 180,000 shi of grain are equivalent to hundreds of thousands of taels of silver. Even if a grain merchant knows he has made a loss, he still has to find a way to recover the loss. But this Yadian Yamen, a thoughtful look flashed in Lin Chen's eyes. Presumptuous, the yellow-faced man sitting high on the horse scolded Yang Ji. On the contrary, Yang Ji grinned, without giving in at all, and asked at the top of his voice, a certain family is the commander of the military and horse division of the 5 cities. Yang Ji, you are only a 9th-grade Yuho, how dare you ride on a horse to ask questions? Get off your horse yet. Yang Ji's voice, mixed with some internal force, made the eardrums of everyone present hurt. Especially the yellow-faced man, he didn't expect Yang Ji to come like this. Without checking, he found out. Yu Hu was so distracted that he wanted to dismount from his horse and salute. Unexpectedly, a white-faced man grabbed his colleague's arm to bring him back to his senses. Lu Yuho. After seeing who was helping, the yellow-faced man looked grateful. If he really knelt down and saluted in the street, his face would be completely lost. Not only would he lose his own face, but it would even make Lieutenant Gao look bad. When Yang Ji saw the fair-faced Yu Hu, his expression became a little more solemn. The person who was called Lu Yuho also had a strong aura and was on the threshold of a second-rate warrior. Who are you? A certain family is Yu Hu, Lu Qian, who is under Captain Gao. Marquis Lu Yu, why did you, the palace guard, stop the carriage of our 5 cities soldiers and horses division? But Lu Qian shook his head and said, Captain Gao has an order, and your troops from the 5 cities are randomly searching the shops. The commander-in-chief has sent a letter to your majesty to ask for your guilt. Joke. Yang Ji heard this and sneered. Lin Dutong acted according to the notices issued by the Imperial envoys for disaster relief, so why did he randomly check them? Will you give way? Yang Ji clenched his spear, a fierce light flashing in his eyes. The soldiers of the 5 cities' soldiers and horses department also put into attack posture, with overwhelming force. The guards at the palace guarding the palace looked at each other in confusion, and before the fight started, their momentum had weakened by 3 points. Lu Qian felt deeply troubled when he saw this. He did not expect that the soldiers of the 5 cities military and horse division would seem to have changed after the new capital commander took office. In the past, the soldiers of the 5 cities military and horse division were like the servants of the imperial government, a group of wastes that could not be reused. Just when the two sides were in a stalemate, the Captain Gao that Lu Qian was talking about arrived. I saw that Lieutenant Gao was thin and had a neat beard under his face. He looked a little insecure and angry. Lieutenant. When Lu Qian saw the backbone, he breathed a sigh of relief and quickly stepped forward to salute. Even the palace guards had the courage to do so. They all stared with wide eyes and acted fiercely. Lieutenant Gao didn't even bother to look at Yang Ji, a vulgar warrior, and waved his hand to seize the grain cart. But don't want to. The sound of horse hooves made Yang Ji's face light up. Lin Dutong is here. Gao Chu looked at the ghost-faced Dutong, glanced at it, and then snorted 4 words. Mysterious. Lin Chen was naturally also sizing up Captain Gao. After all, the other party is a well-known figure even though he is not big or small. If we just talk about appearance, Gao Chu doesn't look like a treacherous minister who flatters his superiors and bullies his subordinates. Lieutenant Gao, I heard that you have a godson. Lin Chen couldn't help but ask with interest. Gao Chu originally thought that Lin Chen would greet him and salute him when he saw him, and at least show his face. How could I imagine that the first thing the other person said would be his godson? Lin Dutong, do you know my godson? I think no one in this capital knows the name of Gao Yane. There was an inexplicable meaning in Lin Chen's tone. When Gao Chu heard these words, he only thought they were mocking him. Who doesn't know that Gao Yane relied on Gao Chu's power to bully men and dominate women in the capital, and his reputation spread far and wide. Although there is no Song Haozong in this world, Gao Chu didn't know how to get it, and got together with He Shen. We are really not a family, we don't enter the same family. By virtue of the prestige of the monk's book, Gao Chu, a 5th-rank official in the imperial government, was able to be honored as Taiwei. Yang Ji. Lin Chen suddenly spoke. The humble position is here. First escort the grain carts into the warehouse. Anyone who dares to stop them will be arrested. Lin Chen said in a calm tone, completely ignoring Gao Chu's face that was getting darker. Although Gao Chu was a senior official than Lin Chen, they were not in the same department, so Gao Chu's official authority naturally could not overwhelm Lin Chen. Lin Chenjia, this is the order from the monk's book, asking you to release the grain shop owner and return the seized grain. Seeing that Lin Chen insisted on doing this, Gao Chu had no choice but to use He Shen's name. Really, how could this greedy He Shen miss a good opportunity to make money from the disaster? When he checked the grain store, he and Shen suffered the most. Master. Lin Chen pretended to be surprised and said, this capital only takes orders from the imperial envoys for disaster relief. In the Duke Jia's mansion, Mrs. Jia is the one who calls the shots now. Although the prince who followed the founding emperor of Li Tang to conquer the world died of illness, his reputation as one of the 2 princes made outsiders dare not underestimate him. Because of this, the Jia family is also the first among the nobles in the capital. It's like the flowers are covered with brocade and the fire is cooking oil. But no one saw that the talents of the Jia family were withering and there was no chance of success. In particular, the 2 legitimate sons of the Jia family who inherited the title had no ambition to make progress and stayed in the duke's mansion to enjoy their wealth. After all, he is the heir of such a large Jia family. Only Jia Zheng served as a leisurely 6th-grade official in the Ministry of Industry. I don't know if future generations would act like this and the knowledgeable Jia Guo Guild would be angry. Old lady, do you know that Beijing is very lively recently? In the Jia mansion, there is a luxurious interior hall. A group of beautiful girls with different temperaments, all of them elegant and delicate, gathered around Mrs. Jia, laughing and playing. The Jia Baoyu cat, who was estimated to be 15 years old, was coquettishly in Mrs. Jia's arms. These words made Jia Baoyu interested. The person who said this was a heroic girl. Her surname is Shi, and she is also the legitimate daughter of a marquis. It's just that the history of this family has been unfavorable in recent years, and the family has been in a lot of shortfalls, which is not as luxurious as the Jia family. The military commander of the 5 cities was replaced by another commander, but he followed the example of King Lanaling and covered his face with a ghost mask. King Lanaling. The girls present are all knowledgeable people. Naturally, he knew a general who was famous for his good looks and could go into battle to kill the enemy. Ghost face. The person who said this was Lin Daiyu, whose face was delicate and pale, and made people feel pity just by looking at her. Now that she is still young, she looks like a pretty, sickly little loli. Seeing everyone's interest, Shi Shangyan excitedly talked about what Lin Chen had done. Especially when he mentioned that the other party was killing people in the refugee camp outside the city, many girls turned pale in fright. You girl, why are your daughters talking about this? Mrs. Jia couldn't help laughing and scolding, a little bit between Shi Shangyan's eyebrows. At this moment, Shi Shangyan stuck out his tongue and talked about Lin Chen's raid on the grain dealer. Interspersed with Lin Chen's confrontation with Gao Chu and He Shen in the street, the girls present had a strange look in their eyes. If this Dutong is as good-looking as King Lanaling, then he is really a strange person. Seeing her sisters, they were all attracted to Lao Shizi Dutong. This made Jia Baoyu feel a little unhappy. In the inner house of the Jia family, he, who was born with a jade in his mouth, is the one who is admired by the stars. Jia Baoyu, who was disgusted, muttered, I only imitate the appearance of King Lanaling, but he is just a rough and fighting man. Such men are like muddy mud. Hearing these words, everyone present had different expressions. You must know that this Jia Guogong also achieved meritorious service by fighting on the battlefield. If we follow Jia Baoyu's words, isn't Jia Guogong also a person like dirt? Because of Jia Baoyu's words, the atmosphere in the inner hall suddenly became slightly cold. You fool, what are you talking nonsense about? Jia Zheng happened to come in to greet Jia's mother. Hearing Jia Baoyu's words, he jumped in anger. To be honest, this is slandering our ancestors. Immediately, he picked up the cane and was about to hit Jia Baoyu's butt. But when Jia Mu and Mrs. Wang stopped him, Jia Zheng could only give up angrily, and finally gave Jia Baoyu a vicious look before leaving angrily. At this time, the smile on Jia Mu's face was a little ugly. When Mrs. Wang saw this, she was shocked and quickly spoke to calm the atmosphere. Baoyu means that he must step out of the cabinet and become a prime minister in the future, and not be an ordinary man who fights. As soon as these words came out, Jia Mu's expression relaxed a little. But Jia Baoyu was quite dissatisfied with her mother's words and muttered, what's so good about being an official? They are just thieves of the country and cowards. Baoyu, Mrs. Wang scolded when she heard this. If Jia Zheng heard this, he would probably be beaten again. Didn't this country's thieves even scold me? Seeing her mother angry, Jia Baoyu shut up and looked pitifully at Sister Lin for comfort. But Lin Daiyu avoided looking at Jia Baoyu. Broken. Jia Baoyu was shocked. I forgot that Lin Daiyu's father, Lin Ruai, was also what he called a national thief. Involuntarily, Jia Baoyu pulled off the jade pendant from his neck and threw it to the ground. This time, the inner hall was in chaos again. Jia Mu quickly asked her servants to look for jade on the ground. But he didn't expect that at this moment, Wang Zifeng hurried into the inner hall and was stunned when he saw the scene in front of him. Wang Zifeng noticed that everyone was surrounding Jia Baoyu and guessed what happened. If it were normal, she would be indispensable to lighten the atmosphere and clear the air. But at this time, Wang Zifeng didn't have such thoughts and came directly to Jia Mu to say hello. Jia Mu was also a shrewd person and immediately asked Wang Zifeng what was going on. Old lady, several of our shops in the capital have been raided by the 5 cities soldiers and horses division. As soon as these words came out, the inner hall suddenly became quiet. No, earlier they were still chatting about the commander-in-chief of the 5 cities military and horse division. How is this going? When Jia Mu heard this, she immediately understood that this matter was not simple. although the Jia family has a great cause. But for a shop located in the capital, the land alone is worth a lot of money. More importantly, was it His Majesty the Emperor's order to raid the shop? After all, Jia Mu had followed Jia Guogong to the market, so she immediately asked Jia Zheng to come over and ask what happened. Jia Zheng, who was drinking and reciting poems with his literati hangers on, was called to Jia's mother in confusion. When he mentioned that his shop was sealed, Jia Zheng was also shocked. It's a disaster. All of a sudden, no one cared about Jia Baoyu's previous throwing of jade. Jia Mu quickly called her trusted servants and went outside to inquire. Soon, the servant came back with news. His Majesty was furious when he learned about the price of grain in the capital. The military commanders of the 5 cities wrote bluntly, saying that most of it was the work of nobles. When Wang Zifeng heard that she could not help but feel weak, her pretty face was full of panic. This thing of hoarding food during disaster years and selling it at a high price has been true throughout the ages. Wang Zifeng relied on the Jia family's influence and made many Jia family shops switch to buying grain. She has made a lot of money recently. No idea, it turned out to be a disaster in the blink of an eye. Lin Chen naturally didn't know that his words had made everyone in the Jia family panic. He was in the court hall, looking at many ministers angrily. Most of the people here are self-proclaimed Qingliu people. If Lin Chen's criticism were to be carried out, their reputation would be ruined. Your Majesty, these remarks are purely false accusations. When one person stood up to defend himself, he pointed the finger at Lin Chen. This Lin Chenjia still wears a ghost mask when he goes to court, which shows his contempt for the court. Good guy. Lin Chen couldn't help but was speechless, and he was wearing a big hat when he opened his mouth. Lin Chen naturally wanted to refute and said immediately, I have an ugly face. I am afraid that I will scare you all by taking off my mask. If there is someone out there. Didn't go on. The implication is that this is for the sake of you old men. Lin Chen looked coldly at the officials in the court who jumped out to ask for punishment for their crimes. One by one of these guys, they are all members of Hessian's party. As for the famous He Zongtang, the old god was here at this time, as if the matter had nothing to do with him. You must know the money-making methods of this gentleman, no one in the world dares to compare with him. Officials were promoted and transferred, construction of weirs and embankments, taxation, money and grain transportation, He Shen could all try to get his hands on the fat and oil. Nowadays, Gyeonggi province is suffering from natural and man-made disasters. Even if it is to open a porridge factory for disaster relief, I and the adults are planning to make a fortune from this. Absurd, Shengguan Wanner said with a frosty face. A few days ago, I issued an announcement in the city not to allow food prices to rise too high. With that said, Shengguan Wanner held a memorial in her hand and handed it to the eunuch at Li Zhao's side. The eunuch respectfully handed the memorial to His Majesty the Emperor. Seeing the memorial in Shengguan Wanner's hand, the court ministers couldn't help but calm down. Even Lord He Shen's expression looked a bit unnatural. Really, after Li Zhao read the contents of the memorial, he became furious. I didn't know that the price of 1 stone of grain in this capital has increased more than 5 times. This group of profiteers really deserves to die. Seeing His Majesty the Emperor's angry rebuke, the officials who had previously criticized Lin Chen began to pretend to be dead. He Shen. When the Emperor saw that no one answered his words, he immediately shouted, I'm here. He Shen stood up and saluted with a respectful attitude. You are the minister of the Ministry of Household Affairs, but you don't know the price of food in the city. He Shen seemed to know that the new emperor would be so accountable, and immediately replied with a grimace, Your Majesty, as the old saying goes, it is the nature of merchants to pursue profits. The implication is that this is human nature, and he and Shen can't control it. Certainly, the real reason is, in fact, he and Shen had a big share in the sky-high food prices. Enough. The new emperor was obviously not satisfied with this explanation. In that case, what's wrong with Lin Dutong's search for profiteers and evil businessmen? This. Of course it's wrong, it's just blocking some people's financial path. Thinking of this, He Shen wiped the non-existent cold sweat on his forehead. Reporting to Your Majesty, I will let my subordinates control the grain merchants when I get back. This kind of thing will definitely not happen again. Seeing He Shen say this, Li Jiao calmed down a little and nodded. But, Your Majesty, He Shen continued, that Lin Dutong was arbitrarily raiding grain merchants. It seemed that he was dedicated to dealing with illegal merchants for the public good, but in fact he was doing it to enrich his own pockets. I boldly suggest that the grain confiscated by the military and horse division of the 5 cities be returned to the household department for subsequent relief to the victims. Good guy, I dare you to love this person waiting for Lin Chen here. It has become a fact that merchants are being questioned. It would be better to recover the food. As for the shopkeepers who were arrested by Lin Chen, they were treated as scapegoats. Master He, are you trying to frame Zongliang? There was no need for Lin Chen to come forward to defend himself. Shangguan Wanner said coldly, now that the seized grains are all under the jurisdiction of this imperial envoy, I won't bother you. He Shen was startled when he saw Shangguan Wanner interposing his hand. Shangguan Wanner has always behaved in the court like His Majesty's confidant and pure minister. Why would you come forward to protect this small capital now? Is it possible? He Shen was suddenly shocked. This top corrupt official is not a fool. He thought of some rumors saying that Lin Chenjia, the commander-in-chief, was a member of His Majesty the Emperor. In other words, it is the Emperor's idea to suppress food prices now. When he thought about He Shen, who was against the new Emperor Dingnu, thin cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Fortunately, he was not personally involved in this matter. Some of his subordinates were involved. In this case, I am willing to help Shangguan Nu Shi coordinate this disaster relief. Immediately, He Shen, whose attitude changed 180 degrees, showed himself to be loyal to the Emperor and the public. Lin Chen was stunned by this change. Sir, are you learning to change your face? Only Li Jiao, who was on the throne, glanced at He Shen who was bowing his head respectfully. This old fox did not continue to take advantage of the trap. Now He Shen is still entangled in this matter. Then Li Jiao had an excuse to use this matter to make trouble and ask Shangguan Wanner to investigate who was driving up the price of food in the capital. This Hubu Shengshu Hessian will have to shed his skin even if he doesn't die. Now that He Shen was on his knees, it was difficult for Li Jiao to take action. After all, the court forces had to be kept in balance by people like He Shen. At last, this impeachment ended with loud thunder but no raindrops. Lin Chen made a great contribution by raiding the grain merchants and will reward him after the disaster relief is over. It was his first time attending a court meeting, and Lin Chen didn't think there was anything novel about it. It's nothing more than fighting with the same party and trying to fool Li Jiao with trivial things. Lin Chen couldn't help but marvel at this scene. If he were the emperor and saw his subordinates like this, he would also wish for a paternal purge. With this thought in his mind, Lin Chen planned to go back to the prince's mansion. The first step of the disaster relief plan was considered to be successful. Next, he had to discuss with Shangguan Wanner in detail how to use work instead of relief, and how to recruit the hundreds of thousands of victims who would later arrive in the capital. Unexpectedly, just when Lin Chen was about to leave, he was stopped by someone. Lin Dutong. This hearty voice has an innate fondness for him. Who? Lin Chen subconsciously turned his head to look at the 2 military attaches striding towards him. The heroic man was wearing the court uniform of a 3rd-grade military attaché. Zhao Kuangyan. Lin Chen's eyes shrank incomprehensibly, and he recognized the other person at a glance. If nothing else, the opponent would be the founding monarch of the Song dynasty. Although the means of founding the country were not very glorious, bullying orphans and widowed mothers. But Lin Chen knew very well that any founding monarch in history was not a good person. What does this Zhao Kuangyan want to do with him? I've met Mr. Zhao. Lin Chen saluted politely. Unexpectedly, Zhao Kuangyan seemed not to notice the alienation in Lin Chen's attitude, and said with a smile, Lin Dutong did a good job on this. While Lin Chen was surprised, Zhao Kuangyan loudly praised him for cracking down on illegal traders. Snort. While the two were talking, Mr. He, who seemed to be owed 1.8 million, passed by with a flick of his sleeve. Lin Chen also realized at this time that Zhao Kuangyan was trying to win over him in name only. Lin Chen looked at Zhao Kuangyan with twinkling eyes, but the latter had a calm expression. Lin Dutong, come to Zhao Mansion when you have time, and I'll treat you to a drink. After saying that, Zhao Kuangyan left with a smile. If it were anyone else, being so cordially courted by the boss of his immediate boss, he would probably not be accepted on the spot. But Lin Chen knew very well that the other party was giving him eye drops. Does Zhao Kuangyan not know that he is a member of the new emperor? Of course I know. If the emperor knew about this, then the other party's purpose would be achieved. As the saying goes, loyalty is not absolute, that is absolute disloyalty. For the pure ministers around the emperor, once they have an affair with a foreign minister, the consequences can be imagined. Ah, Lin Chen looked at Zhao Kuangyan's confident departure and smiled calmly. Zhao Kuangyan might not have thought of it. My identity is so complicated that I can only cling to the emperor's thigh at the moment. Lin Chen left the palace in front of everyone, but changed his clothes and entered the palace where outsiders could not see him. With the prince's palace young attendant's token, he went all the way to the prince's palace. What Lin Chen didn't expect was that someone stopped him on the road. It's none other than Hai Dafu. Xiao Linzi, where have you been in the past few days? Hai Dafu's gloomy voice sounded. If Lin Chen were still a first-rate warrior, he would probably be scared to death by the opponent's elusiveness. But now Lin Chen has actually discovered the other party a long time ago. Lin Chen, who pretended to be startled, had internal energy surging in his body and was always on guard. Chief Hai, you still don't make any sound when you walk. Lin Chen said with a smiley voice, and his attitude was not very friendly. He did this naturally to give Hai Dafu an illusion. Let Hai Dafu believe that Lin Chen is just a first-class warrior and he can easily handle it. If the two of them fall out at that time, Lin Chen can catch them by surprise. Hai Dafu saw Lin Chen's performance and felt very satisfied. Xiao Linzi, you haven't answered what I said yet. Hai Dafu obviously wanted to know where Lin Chen had been during this time. In the prince's mansion, the Shangguan female history. Lin Chen, who didn't finish his words, smiled like a man. When Hai Dafu saw this, his face darkened. He naturally understood what Lin Chen did with Shangguan Wanner in the prince's mansion. Xiao Linzi, this word for is like a knife to the head, especially Shangguan Wanner's physique that breaks the bones and sucks out the marrow. Hai Dafu said in a profound tone. Indeed, if it weren't for Yu Yang's mental skills, ordinary men wouldn't even have the chance to have a romantic kiss with Shangguan Wanner. Now I don't have to worry about it, Chief Hai. Lin Chen naturally had to show his displeasure. When Hai Dafu saw this, he didn't say anything and ignored the matter. He just told Lin Chen in a slightly threatening tone, Xiao Linzi, don't forget our original deal. Tonight, you go to the Queen Mother. Seeing that there was a hint of doubt in Hai Dafu's tone, Lin Chen had no choice but to nod and try to see if he could find out the whereabouts of the 42 chapters from the true Queen Mother. Originally, today was the 15th full moon. I still wanted to try the taste of plum blossoms under the moon with Shangguan Wanner, but I had to change the time. Immediately, Lin Chen, who escaped from Hai Dafu's place, went all the way to the political cabinet of the prince's mansion. Shangguan Wanner is sitting on her knees in palace attire. She looks cold and cool, but she can't help but be intoxicated by it. It looks like a jar of August plum wine, I have to try it. You're here. Shangguan Wanner smiled slightly and looked up at Lin Chen. This look makes her look like a beauty waiting to meet her lover. Lin Chen immediately threw this idea away. Joke. Shangguan Wanner doesn't need to be treated like an ordinary woman. This period of getting along with each other was not entirely fruitless. At least Lin Chen could act more casual when he was alone with Shangguan Wanner. There is no need to call her adult or Shangguan if she. This is. Lin Chen looked at the documents in front of Shangguan Wanner. This is a report sent by officials from various places in Gyeonggi province on the situation of the victims. The more he looked at it, the more frightened Lin Chen became. The sources of information he currently has access to are limited to those around the capital. But I didn't expect that the situation in various prefectures and counties in Gyeonggi province would be so serious. This flood was caused by a 5-day heavy rain. As a result, ditches around Gyeonggi province swelled and fields were flooded. County magistrates from all over the country are not money hungry at all. They are also mobilizing county officials to clear ditches and rush to allocate grain seeds, hoping to harvest subsistence rations before winter comes. This is a natural disaster, not a man-made disaster. But such emergency measures cannot suppress the impact of the flood. There are hundreds of thousands of disaster victims in urgent need of food rations to survive the winter. Nowadays, a large amount of grain has been mobilized from Jiangnan and other places to Beijing, but it is only a drop in the bucket. Shangguan Wanner, who was rubbing her brows with her jade fingers, had a hint of exhaustion in her tone. Aren't there still 3 major official warehouses to store grain? Lin Chen was surprised. Guankang. Upon hearing Lin Chen's words, Shangguan Wanner's eyes flashed with helplessness. A few days ago, I ordered people to inspect the grain storage in the 3 major official warehouses. Last night, the south warehouse caught fire, and the north warehouse was robbed by bandits. Only 20% of the grain was left in the warehouse. The warden of the West Dakang Kangkang was a thief who sold 400,000 dan to store grain. He has been suppressed by me for questioning and will be executed by the Queen of Autumn. Lin Chen didn't know what to say for a moment. Things like fire dragons burning down warehouses seem to have happened throughout the ages. From this point of view, there is no hope for Guankang. Only, in Bidakang, hundreds of thousands of stones of grain were robbed by bandits overnight. Isn't this excuse just fooling fools? And this Nishi Okura? Lin Chen didn't believe that a warehouse manager had the guts to sell 400,000 shi of official grain. No wonder Lin Chen looked tired when he saw Shangguan Wanner. If he had to deal with all these troubles, he might not be so tired. How about leaving this Bidakang grain theft case to your 5 cities military and horse division? Suddenly, Shangguan Wanner asked. Shouldn't this kind of case be handed over to the divine office? Lin Chen raised his eyebrows slightly. You must know that there are 4 famous arresters in this divine arresting office, and there is also a Zug god who is in charge. Those 4 famous arrests are investigating a massacre of a family in Jianghu. Only God Zug is in office, but this god. Shangguan Wanner, who was hesitant to speak, sighed. It seems that the other party is full of energy but not enough. Lin Chen understood. Did it turn out that the Wucheng soldiers and horses division was asked to cooperate with the Zug god in handling the case? No one dares to disobey the orders of Lady Shi, Lin Chen said jokingly. But when Shangguan Wanner heard this, she rolled her eyes at him. On the contrary, I ordered the Imperial chef to prepare meals tonight. Can Lin Dutong reward me? Shangguan Wanner seemed to have thought of something. Although her tone was cold, Lin Chen could read a different meaning in it. It was obvious that Shangguan Wanner was under a lot of pressure and needed to vent. When Lin Chen thought of something, he could only shake his head and decline, and make an appointment next time. In the end, Lin Chen seemed to walk in a hurry, fearing that he would regret it if he took a step too late. Shangguan Wanner is so good at it. Can that palace dress that is so thin that you can see the blood vessels in her skin really be considered clothing? Fortunately, Lin Chen remembered his agreement with Hai Dafu. I have to go to the Queen Mother tonight. Apart from anything else, Lin Chen still remembered the warm and rich feel. It's dry and dry. There are also night watch eunuchs in the palace who are dedicated to guarding against leaks in the palace. Lin Chen avoided these night watch eunuchs and arrived at the back door of Sinning Palace. Tuk tuk. Lin Chen knocked on the wooden door. After a moment, a pair of hands stretched out from the door. Seeing this, Lin Chen handed the dragon cult token to the place that the maid next to the fake Queen Mother had given him. Another quarter of an hour later, the door opened. The 2 palace maids with indifferent expressions motioned for Lin Chen to follow them. Lin Chen had been here once before and was already familiar with it. All the way to the back of the side hall, the palace maid led the way and left quietly. Lin Chen looked at the dim candlelight in the side hall, as if the people in the hall had not fallen asleep at midnight. The 6 senses were spread out to cover the entire side hall, and nothing unusual was found. This time, I didn't listen to the fake Queen Mother in the corner. Seeing this, Lin Chen breathed a sigh of relief, but he also felt a little regretful. Cough. Lin Chen coughed lightly before striding open the palace door and walking in. Hearing the movement outside the door, the beauty on the bed trembled slightly, but did not turn around. This time, the real Queen Mother was not drugged and could move freely. Feeling the hot breath getting closer, the real Queen Mother obviously did not show such calmness in her heart. After a long time, the Queen Mother said with a slightly trembling voice, "Thief, do you know that this is a serious crime against the 9 tribes?" The real Queen Mother tried her best to sound more threatening, but failed to pay attention to her delicate voice, which might be more interesting. Lin Chen held the Queen Mother's warm jade hand and followed the other's movements and placed it on her lower abdomen. The late Emperor and Empress was only in her 30s at this time. If we put it in modern times, it is still the most attractive age for women. When did you find out? When Lin Chen saw the other party's actions, he knew that the Queen Mother had discovered that she was pregnant. Hearing the gentle question from the man beside her, the Queen Mother lowered her head and remained silent. She was made the Queen Mother simply because the late Emperor at that time wanted to win over the hearts of scholars all over the world. Because she has a father named Kai Yang. Yes, Lin Chen only found out later that the Queen Mother in his arms was named Wenji, Kai Wenji. After hearing the news, Lin Chen could only sigh that the world is too complicated. Seeing that Kai Wenji was silent, Lin Chen just stroked Kai Wenji's hair tenderly. Seeing the slightly stiff body of the beautiful woman in his arms gradually relaxing, Lin Chen made a move. To know, when Kai Wenji entered the palace, she was just a teenage girl. And the late emperor was already old. Lin Chen even doubted whether the other party still had the energy to have love. At least when Lin Chen got close to the real Queen Mother that night, he was not inferior to Xiao Zhao in the slightest. This feeling is quite amazing. This noble lady from the Deep Palace tasted meat for the first time, and also unexpectedly won a lottery and became pregnant with an heir. Even Luo Shen was a little confused and at a loss. Lin Chen half-heartedly decided to forget these worries for the time being. Don't, be careful kid. Everyone in the world knows that Wenji's piano skills are superb, but little does anyone know that her voice is like the cry of a nightingale, as if she is talking to someone. As a modern person, Lin Chen certainly knew some physiological knowledge better than the ancients. It's less than a month old, and the embryo hasn't even developed yet. Midnight. The Luo Shen, whose dark hair was wet with sweat, had a tired look on his face, but his brows were full of spring. Did you know that this is a capital crime? Kai Wenji said this in an inexplicable tone. How will we tell outsiders about this child's origins in August? Speaking of children, Wenji's voice became filled with resentment. When the time comes, maybe both this child and himself will die. For her, this fate is really unfair. Everyone knows that she is a queen mother of a country, and she is precious beyond words. But she didn't expect that she was more like a caged bird, being scorned by the deceitful man in front of her. Thinking of this, Wenji bit the back of the mischievous hand in front of her. Lin Chen noticed the other party's little movements, but couldn't help but laugh. She is already in her 30s, but she still has the attitude of a little girl. I will protect you mother and son. Lin Chen kissed Wenji gently on the forehead and then stood up. Kai Wenji looked at the handsome man in front of her, her beautiful eyes full of surprise. She didn't know why Lin Chen dared to say such things. I thought that the other party was just a miserable person. Seeing Wenji's appearance, Lin Chen couldn't help but wipe the tears from the corners of Wenji's eyes with his fingers. Wenji, who noticed Lin Chen's movements, turned slightly red. Even though it was the second time, it still made her cry in pain. Wenji, when did the fake Queen Mother trap you here? Lin Chen asked about the fake Queen Mother. I'm asking for a beating. How can you call this Wenji? After having some fun with her lover, she finally talked about the fake Queen Mother. It was originally during the time when the late emperor died of illness. Kai Wenji moved the palace to Sinning Palace. It was during this time. The traitor of the dragon cult who had been lurking around him for a long time controlled him, and then the so-called saint disguised himself as himself. When Lin Chen heard this, a thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. This Shenlong cult's plan was obviously carefully planned. The time chosen was when Kai Wenji became the Queen Mother. After all, after Kai Wenji became the Queen Mother, she could use excuses not to contact foreign ministers. In this way, even if there is something wrong with the fake Queen Mother, no one will notice it. In addition, the entire Sinning Palace was filled with fake Queen Mothers, so Kai Wenji could only be trapped in this side hall and was not allowed to go out. Then why do you pretend to be the Queen Mother? Lin Chen asked Kai Wenji, pretending to be surprised. He naturally knew that the fake Queen Mother was here for the purpose of the 42-chapter sutra. But Kai Wenji, a real Queen Mother, obviously should know more inside information. Really? Kai Wenji's calm face showed hesitation. Perhaps, it has something to do with Chapter 42. Oh, under Lin Chen's guidance, Kai Wenji revealed more of the late emperor's secrets. For example, these 42 chapters. According to legend, the secret scriptures introduced to the Central Plains by Buddhist monks were first given to the previous emperors. It is said that this scripture contains the method of immortality. Some people say that this sutra records the supreme Buddhist techniques, and those who learn them can enter the legendary realm of gods. Some people also say that the scriptures contain treasures accumulated by monks over hundreds of years, which are priceless. It's just that there are different opinions on this kind of rumors, and no one can believe them accurately. After Li Tang founded the country, some donors also gave the collected 42 chapters to the late emperor. The emperor was not interested in this and placed it in the imperial study. Later, when Kai Wenji, a famous and talented woman, entered the palace, the late emperor gave Wenji many books to relieve her boredom. Among them there are 5 sutras with 42 chapters. So, you are also here for these 42 chapters. Kai Wenji was a uniquely intelligent woman in the world, and she immediately guessed something. If it were before, I did come here for these 42 chapters of the sutra, but now, I have found a treasure more precious than this sutra. Lin Chen said affectionately. Such love words, which are greasy in modern times, are particularly useful at this time. Obviously Kai Wenji is not a vulgar woman who can be won by just 1 or 2 sweet words. But all women love to hear this kind of love talk. Funny words. Luo Shen pursed his lips and said with dissatisfaction. After the two of them had a warm conversation, Lin Chen suddenly thought of a thought he had had in his mind before. That is to explore Sinning Palace at night. He immediately felt a slight movement in his heart and looked at his character panel. Host: Lin Chen. Current partner: 3. Current heirs: 1. Unborn. Current status: peaceful blood. Kung Fu learned. Yuyang Heart Method Grandmaster 13 Silver Leaf Swords Dacheng Great Shift of the Universe Dacheng 6 Yao Steps Shaocheng. Current state: early days of the day after tomorrow. Props held. Omitted. These 6 steps to achieve enlightenment are what Lin Chen relies on to dare to visit Sinning Palace at night. On that day, after Shangguan Wan'er told Lin Chen that he would be sent by Li Jiao to serve as the commander-in-chief of the military and horse division of the 5 cities, she asked him to go to the Shengshu pavilion of the prince's mansion to choose a few exercises to practice for self-protection. Some of them are due to Lin Chen's outstanding talent in martial arts, and some are due to Lin Chen's temporary ability to protect himself. But what Shangguan Wan'er didn't know was that Lin Chen was already an acquired warrior. However, Lin Chen's background was slightly lacking compared to those who practiced normally and reached martial arts masters the day after tomorrow. So Lin Chen agreed and went to Shengshu Pavilion to make a selection. At last, Lin Chen considered that he already had the 13 silver leaf swords and the great shift of the universe's moves, but was missing a light kung fu secret book. Therefore, he selected a first-class Qing Kung book called Lu Yao Bi Yu Ju. This Qing Gong book is definitely among the best among the first-class Qing Gong books. It should be said that this is the prince's mansion, the capital of wealth and wealth. Kung fu that is rare in the outside world can be seen everywhere in Shengshu Pavilion, just like free cabbage. On the contrary, when Shangguan Wan'er saw Lin Chen, she only chose this Qing Gong secret book with an unswerving expression. Lin Chen said with a smile, "This can save his life." In this case, Shangguan Wan'er couldn't say anything more and just let him go. Thinking of this, after Lin Chen saw Kai Wenji sleeping deeply, he stood up lightly without waking her up. This Qing Gong is a good choice. Lin Chen, who had never left a shadow under the bright moon, walked through the Sinning Palace like a ghost. The fake Queen Mother became quite vigilant after she was assassinated last time. On the way to the inner hall of Sinning Palace, Lin Chen encountered no less than 3 waves of night watch maids. These palace maids have steady steps and long breaths. At first glance, they are martial arts practitioners. However, these palace maids, who were no more than third-rate warriors, could not detect Lin Chen lurking in the shadows. So much so that Lin Chen followed a group of maids on night watch and quietly entered the inner hall. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. Lin Chen saw the candlelight in the inner hall was shining brightly, but there was not much sound. Seeing this, Lin Chen, who was walking along the palace roof and into the inner hall, became lighter and lighter. Is this where the Queen Mother usually lives? Lin Chen looked at the luxurious interior of the inner hall and couldn't help but take a second look. Just at this time, there was a faint fragrance mixed with the sound of bare feet stepping on the jade ground. Lin Chen blended under the curtain and looked in the direction of the voice. Then, Lin Chen's mouth twitched slightly when he saw the figure clearly. This fake queen mother takes a bath in the middle of the night, she really has a leisurely time. I saw that there were no maids around the fake queen mother. Lin Chen noticed something and couldn't help but shrink his pupils. The fake queen mother stretched out her hand and played with her face. That wriggling human skin mask makes people sick to their stomachs. Tear. The human skin mask was removed from the face of the fake queen mother. Just look at the fake queen mother who got up from the wash basin and put the mask in her hand somewhere away from the water. It's still different. Lin Chen saw the figure of the fake queen mother and compared it with Wen Ji. Can only say, the fake thing is still not as good as the real thing. Wen Ji has such a broad mind that even one hand can't hold it. On the other hand, this fake queen mother, although not small, can fit into one's hand. Perhaps it's because the fake queen mother is a warrior, and her figure is well proportioned and tight. Especially the long legs make people curious about how they feel. Is this the true appearance of the fake queen mother? I don't agree with Kai Wenji's elegant appearance. Her face looks exactly like Zhang Min's. She is very charming and charming at the same time. These two temperaments are mixed together to create a peerless beauty. Have you seen enough? At this time, curling up in a wooden basin filled with flower petals, the false queen mother chuckled faintly, spread out a splash of water on her fair arms, and then sprinkled it on her chest. When Lin Chen heard the sound, he instinctively thought that he had been exposed. But don't want to. A wave of murderous internal energy went straight from the top of Sinning Palace to the fake queen mother below. Wow! A large number of bricks and tiles were crushed into powder by internal force and flew all over the sky. In this sky full of smoke and dust, a figure wearing night clothes turned his fists into his palms and headed straight for the fake queen mother Tianling Gai. Assassination. Lin Chen saw this scene in his eyes and understood clearly in his heart. On the other hand, the fake queen mother chuckled charmingly, and the water in the tub splashed, turning into a sharp blade and flying towards the sky. The inner force contained in this water droplet is enough to shoot a piece of iron armor into a sieve. The assassin obviously didn't react, and the internal force in his body burst out, evaporating the water droplets that swept in. However, this short delay was enough for the fake queen mother to change her clothes. The fake queen mother was shocked to find that the place where she originally placed her clothes was empty. As a last resort, the fake queen mother used a piece of white cloth to cover her important parts, looking embarrassed. Who else is here? Boom! A figure wearing heavy foot armor and wielding an iron gun rushed out from under the curtain. There was actually another person lurking in front of him. The fake queen mother's deep eyes were slightly cold. However, when the false queen mother noticed the appearance of this man dressed as a heavily armored soldier, the assassin's hand stopped. The two of them are not the same person. The fake queen mother noticed this and covered her mouth with a smile. Do you stinky men like to spy on women taking baths? Lin Chen remained silent and kicked the clothes aside. It's pitiful to see that this person was just sent to him by the internal force of the fake queen mother and the assassin. The assassin was not stupid either, confronting the inexplicable armored soldiers and the fake queen mother. At this time, the maid outside the palace took action. After they heard the movement in the inner hall, they immediately gathered around. Together, these 5 and 5 formed a formation that Lin Chen had never seen before. Suddenly, the atmosphere at the scene froze. How about you and I joining forces? This queen mother is fake. Capturing her is a great achievement, the assassin said in a rough voice. Lin Chen's mouth twitched when he heard this. Seamaster, stop pretending. Just now, Lin Chen recognized that the assassin's moves were no different from Eunuch Hai's. Hai Dafu, who was speechless by Lin Chen, was also anxious. She actually launched a direct attack towards the fake queen mother, ignoring Lin Chen as if she was nothing. The fake queen mother didn't think so, so she pulled out several gold needles from her headdress, with red threads attached to the tails. Call out! It shot toward the throats of the assassin and Lin Chen at an extremely sneaky speed. The fake queen mother used ruthless moves to kill the assassin and Lin Chen. Obviously, the other party had no intention of letting the two of them leave alive. Lin Chen's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw this. In order not to expose his identity, he immediately transferred his internal energy into the iron gun in his hand. He doesn't know much about marksmanship. So at this moment Sha Jiba swung his hand and knocked these golden needles away with brutal force. Ding 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 ding. The military formation spear made of fine iron had several holes left by the golden needle. If it falls on a person, I think it will penetrate directly. General Manager Hai seemed to have suffered from this golden needle, and his inner strength gathered in his palm. When the golden needle pierced it, he used his surging internal force to knock it away, and at the same time he came close. After only a moment of confrontation, the false Queen Mother knew the depth of these two people. Are they all acquired masters? There was a solemn look in the eyes of the fake Queen Mother. Fortunately, the heavily armored soldier and the assassin were not of the same mind. I saw the movements of the fake Queen Mother's hands change, and the red thread binding the golden needle seemed to be alive, looking for flaws. Coupled with the strong internal strength of the fake Queen Mother, she was able to fight to a draw with Lin Chen Hai Dafu for a while. However, Lin Chen was fishing. The fake Queen Mother, who noticed that Lin Chen was not doing his job well, immediately focused on Hai Dafu. Phew, the gold needle penetrated the cuff, but there was no trace of blood. Hai Dafu saw that his arm was almost gone, and he immediately wanted to retreat. Snort, Hai Dafu sneered, his figure looked like a sneak, and he immediately headed towards the damaged area above his head. Want to escape? The fake Queen Mother refused. When Lin Chen saw this, he immediately poured his inner energy into the iron gun, and then threw it towards it. Call out. The sound of breaking the air that made the fake Queen Mother's face change slightly made the fake Queen Mother give up the idea of pursuing. At the same time, Lin Chen punched through the inner hull and strode out. As for these palace maids, Lin Chen didn't pay attention to them, and directly started the 6 Yao steps, and their figures disappeared into the night sky. The fake Queen Mother was left alone with a white cloth wrapped around her body, her expression changing. Lin Chen, on the other hand, walked around in circles before returning to the side hall of Sinning Palace and put the walking armor on his body into the system backpack. This armor is the rebellion gift package that Lin Chen gave out earlier. As a last resort, Lin Chen used it to hide his identity. The fake Queen Mother, like Shengguan Wanner, may have touched the threshold of innateness. Lin Chen recalled the scene of the fight just now and was secretly speechless. No wonder Hai Dafu failed to get any favors from the other party time and time again. Lin Chen used his internal strength to evaporate the sweat on his body before walking into the side hall. But I saw the beautiful woman's figure reflected in the candlelight, making her look elegant and moving. Suddenly, there was a loud shout outside the hall. The Queen Mother was assassinated. Seriously injured. The Queen Mother was assassinated. Seriously injured. Lin Chen was startled when he heard a certain young eunuch yelling at the top of his voice. Good guy. This fake Queen Mother knows what it means to hit a snake with a stick. While Lin Chen was thinking, he saw Kai Wenji looking at him with beautiful eyes. Especially when thinking about Lin Chen's departure just now, and then the news of the Queen Mother's assassination, Luo Shen's eyes became as warm as water. It seems that the other party misunderstood something. When Lin Chen saw this, he immediately understood what was going on. Are you hurt? Wenji, who immediately started groping around Lin Chen, looked very worried. It seems that it is not bad after misunderstanding. Lin Chen couldn't help but think in his mind when he saw Wenji's appearance. Immediately, Lin Chen's expression turned pale, and he coughed while covering his chest. This kind of acting skills would put any actor to shame. That fake Queen Mother, I didn't expect to be a warrior from the day after tomorrow. I suffered a little loss. A forced smile appeared on Lin Chen's face. Really? Seeing Lin Chen's behavior, Kai Wenji immediately hugged Lin Chen in her arms and carefully helped him onto the bed. What should I do? Kai Wenji looked a little panicked. She is indeed a talented woman who knows everything about ancient and modern times, but she doesn't know anything about how to treat warriors. This way. Lin Chen said everything in Kai Wenji's ear. After listening, the Queen Mother, with red clouds flying on her fair face, bit her teeth. Snapped. Lin Chen's chest was slapped moderately by Luo Shen. All right, Lin Chen saw Kai Wenji's appearance, so he restrained his acting skills, but remained soft in her arms and refused to leave. How can there be such a shameful way to cure a disease in this world? When Lin Chen heard this, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. But Wenji didn't know that in Japan in later generations, the folk remedy for treating colds was to insert green onions into the buttocks. Just when Lin Chen was lost in thought, he felt the movement of the beautiful woman next to him. Hiss! Lin Chen didn't expect to be pinned down, and couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. It was his duty to teach the Queen Mother about physiological knowledge. He immediately turned around and took the initiative. There is a poem that says, "There was a sound of broken jade rings, and when I raised my head, I suddenly felt the gift of wine from heaven." A cloud and rain came down. Lin Chen was extremely happy. Kai Wenji, who is the Queen Mother and the most talented woman in ancient and modern times, is so flattering and cooperative. Lin Chen almost couldn't control it just mentally. For a long time, Lin Chen, who just managed to brace himself up and get up from the warm fragrance of nephrite, rubbed his brows. Last night was a little too ridiculous. Besides, it's getting late. He had to leave Sinning Palace immediately. But unexpectedly, Wenji took Lin Chen's arm and whispered in his ear. "The late emperor rewarded me with 42 chapters of the sutra. I have read them all, and I can also write them down silently." When Lin Chen heard this, his eyes widened. Is this a talented woman? Lin Chen remembered that when he was in school, it was extremely painful just to memorize a lesson guide. Unnecessary. However, Lin Chen shook his head under Wenji's surprised gaze. He didn't come here just for the 42 chapters. This thing is what the Dragon Sect and High Dafu want. Including the 42 chapters, there are 12 books in total, and Kai Wenji has only read 5. If you want to collect them all, you don't know how long it will take to get them all. Seeing Lin Chen reject Kai Wenji, the tenderness in his eyes became more and more obvious. When Lin Chen saw this, he couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth slightly. This is a heartwarming move. If it were before, the relationship between the two would be considered as friends. Kai Wenji is pregnant and is just an enemy. With their unexpected blessings last night. If the favorability level is 100, Kai Wenji's opinion of Lin Chen is at least 80. I will find a way to deal with that fake Queen Mother. Lin Chen comforted Wenji, making her feel at ease. Lin Chen, who left the side hall, pretended to be cautious just now. When the maid guarding the side hall saw Lin Chen, she didn't take a second look at him. "Did you leave the side hall last night?" When Lin Chen heard this, he pretended to be confused and shook his head. Seeing this, the palace maid just gave up her doubts. The eunuch in front of him is nothing more than an ordinary person with a handsome appearance. Come to think of it, what happened last night had nothing to do with him. Chapter 31. Now that he was back in the palace, Lin Chen was not in a hurry to leave the palace immediately. Instead, I came to the side room to see the situation in Xiaojiaodu. Unexpectedly, after searching for a long time, Xiaojiao was not seen. After several inquiries, Lin Chen finally learned that Xiaojiao had been transferred to Yushu Pavilion. Yushu Pavilion. Lin Chen thought of something, and a thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. When Xiaojiao enters the palace this time, I am afraid that there is something she wants in the Yushu Pavilion. Seeing this, Lin Chen left a letter expressing his apology. After all, Xiaojiao's innocence was stolen before, but now he has disappeared, and he is quite like a scumbag. After handling these trivial matters, Lin Chen left the palace all the way. Lin Chen, who transformed into Lin Chenjia, went straight to the 5 cities soldiers and horses department. Lord Tutong. Lord Tutong. When the soldiers from the 5 cities military and horse division saw Lin Chen, they quickly saluted respectfully. During this period of time, Lin Chen's prestige in the hearts of ordinary soldiers had reached its peak. Everyone knows that this Lin Dutong is not afraid of anything, and he can even refuse to give face to adults. Originally, many soldiers from the 5 cities military and horse division thought that Lin Chen was going to be questioned. But he didn't expect that Lin Chen was not only fine, but even meritorious. Is there any commander in the department now? Lin Chen grabbed a small official and asked. Seeing that it was Lin Chen, the other party quickly answered cautiously. Reporting to the commander-in-chief, the commanders are currently executing your orders, and no one is in the department. Both places outside the city had refugee camps, and Lin Chen arranged for thousands of soldiers to maintain order. In addition to the food obtained after raiding the grain dealer, the victims can barely survive with 2 meals of gruel a day. I hope I can survive, and the victims have not caused any trouble in the past few days. In other words, those who plan to cause trouble should consider whether their head is sharper than Lin Chen's knife. Is that so? When Lin Chen heard this, he motioned for the other party to do his own thing. He currently has a headache about the robbery of Peking University's granary. Shangguan Wan'er left this matter to him. I have to go to the Shenzhou Yamen. Lin Chen thought of something and immediately had an idea. This god catches the Yamen and is very popular. In other words, no ordinary people are willing to come to this place. You must know that in the eyes of ordinary people in the capital, the Shenhua Yamen, an agency that specializes in dealing with people in the martial arts world, is definitely a dangerous place. Ordinary warriors cannot come out alive after entering the Shenzhou Yamen. Let alone ordinary people. Lin Chen looked at the dark gate, and dismounted and walked over. Stop! The god-capturing Yamen officer yelled with a knife in his hand. After seeing Lin Chen's outfit, the officer's expression changed slightly. As the person coming Lin Chenjia, Lin Dutong. Exactly, go in and report that I, Lin Chenjia, am here to visit Lord Zhuge Shenhou. Since it is Lin Dutong, if the Lord God has orders, you can go directly in to find him. Oh, Lin Chen raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. It seems that this Zhuge Shenhou has received some information or order. In this case, Lin Chen did not show any courtesy and walked into the Shenhua Yamen. There is a saying that goes well in the world of martial arts, don't enter the gods to catch the Yamen. Lin Chen was in a leisurely mood to look at the decorations in the divine office. After looking at it, Lin Chen's evaluation was that there was nothing novel about it. Certainly, Lin Chen heard that there was a cave beneath the Shenzhou Yamen. Lin Dutong, I have admired you for a long time. At this time, a handsome old man in his 50s was sitting in the middle hall, pouring tea, waiting for someone. After seeing Lin Chen, he chuckled lightly. Is this Zhuge Shenhou? Lin Chen looked at the other person and tentatively dispersed his 6 senses. Zhuge Divine Lord, the lower officials have also admired him for a long time. This Zhuge Shenhou was from the period of the late emperor. Because he solved a major scandal, he was granted the title of Marquis. Nowadays, ordinary people often call each other Zhuge Shenhou to show respect. Lin Dutong came here this time because of the theft case of the official warehouse of Peking University. Lin Chen sat down and slightly picked up the tea handed to him by Zhuge Shenhou. Although his expression remained unchanged, Lin Chen felt a wave of emotion in his heart as he took a sip. Stolen. Lin Chen noticed that the other party described the case as a theft, not a robbery. Zhuge Shenhou seemed to notice what he said too much, couldn't help but smile, and turned to talk about other things. Lin Dutong came here and helped a lot. Those 4 people are now dealing with a tragic case of annihilation and have no time to return to Beijing. The 4 people who are quite close to Zhuge Shenhou are obviously the 4 famous arresters. Ruthless, cold-blooded, life-seeking and iron-handed. A murder case. Lin Chen was somewhat interested in this matter. Lin Dutong doesn't know. Lin Chen shook his head calmly. I thought that Lin Dutong, as a martial artist, should know about this matter. Zhuge Shenhou said with a smile, looking like a harmless old man. Xiaoguan has been busy with his affairs recently, but he has not cared about martial arts affairs. No wonder. Zhuge Shenhou suddenly realized. I just don't know if the other party believes Lin Chen or not. When talking to Zhuge Shenhou, you have to think 10,000 times. Does Lin Dutong know about Fuwei Escort Agency? Fuwei Escort Agency. Lin Chen's heart moved. But the Fuwei Escort Agency in Jiangnan. Exactly. Zhuge Shenhou nodded in agreement. This is Lin Zhenan, the chief escort of the Fuwei Escort Agency. He led the escort team to Beijing a month ago, but was intercepted and killed on the way. No one was spared. Speaking of this matter, Zhuge Shenhu's expression became more serious. Hundreds of members of the Lin family were killed. As soon as this incident came out, it immediately shocked the government and the martial arts community. You must know that Lin Yuantu, the head of the Lin family, once shocked the martial arts world with his evil sword skills. But he didn't want all his descendants to be killed. This case seems to be the work of someone from the martial arts world. As the official in charge of martial arts matters, the Shenhua Yamen naturally took action after hearing the news. 4 famous arrests went to Zhongnan to investigate the matter. Because of this, in this case of Bidakang, the arresting officer was somewhat short of manpower. In other words, this old fox didn't want to be involved. Lin Chen didn't think anymore, took the case file and declined Zhuge Shenhu's invitation to stay for tea. Zhuge Shenhu looked at Lin Chen's back as he rode away, with a flash of thought in his eyes. This Lin Dutong is not very old, but his cultivation is astonishing. Zhuge Shenhu flashed a solemn look in his eyes. He seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but look in the direction of the palace. What a troubled time, he sighed and then turned back to the Shenhua Yamen. This Zhuge Shenhu is actually a warrior in the acquired realm. Lin Chen couldn't help but feel distressed. If he had known earlier, he shouldn't have used his 6 senses to test the other party. This is just great. He learned that Zhuge Shenhu was both cultivated, and so was the other party. What's even worse is that such a powerful old man is also extremely smart. Same. When Zhuge Shenhu mentioned this case, his eyes twinkled. There is only one possibility. The old fox felt that this case was too difficult and he might be involved if he wasn't careful. This is a hot potato. Du Lin Chen sighed, but there was no sign of flinching in his eyes. Drive. The 5 cities military and horse department is handling the case. Anyone who is idle should stay away. The 5 cities military and horse department is handling the case. Anyone who is idle should get out of the way. Under the fierce scolding of all the soldiers, many ruffians outside Bidakang were dispersed. These guys all heard that Bidakang was breached by bandits and planned to come here to see if they could fish in troubled waters. Lin Chen didn't care about this, his eyes just fell on the wall of Bidakang in front of him. As a place for storing grain, the walls of Bidakang are made of glutinous rice mixed brick walls, which are 3 meters high. At this height, it would be difficult for ordinary people to sneak in sneakily. Not to mention that there are 300 patrol officers in Bidakang, patrolling day and night. Master Dutong, the officials from Bidakang are here. Yang Ji walked over quickly and saluted. Lin Chen nodded slightly and signaled Yang Ji to get up, take all the soldiers and search the entire Bidakang. Yes, Yang Ji took the order and left. Lin Chen looked at Yang Ji's back with a flash of thought in his eyes. In Bidakang, as soon as the incident occurred, people from the Shenhua Yamen and Dali Temple came to investigate. If there were any clues, it wouldn't be Lin Chen's turn to discover them. But maybe there was an oversight that was discovered by Yang Ji and his people, and Lin Chen was willing to give the other party a credit. Are you the officials of Bidakang? Lin Chen frowned slightly as he looked at the 3 officials in front of him who looked like frightened birds. Yes, one of them bowed and held his hands, looking trembling. Why are there only 3 of you? Logically speaking, this Bidakang belongs to the Ministry of Household Affairs. According to the rules, the Ministry of Household Affairs is required to send a minister to check the incoming grain every 3 months. Once it is verified, if 10 stones are lost, the guarding official will be sent to jail. For less than 100 stones, the whole Bidakang was asked to answer the question. For less than 1,000 stones, the warehouse manager beheaded him. If this rule is strictly followed, corruption will definitely be eliminated. Therefore, there are at least a dozen officials in Bidakang. But why are there only 3 melons and 2 dates now? Reporting to your lord, that day, that night, my colleagues and I were all killed by bandits. One of them said tremblingly, with fear in his tone. All killed. When Lin Chen heard this, his eyes narrowed. Where are the files of the murdered officials? Here, it's all here. Obviously, this was not the first time these officials were asked about this matter, and they quickly handed over a file. Seeing this, Lin Chen had a calm expression on his face, and then asked about what happened that night. These 3 people told the truth. According to the 3 people, they were not on duty that night, so they drank and had fun in the house. I was so drunk that I lost track of time. But they only heard a cry of killing, which frightened the 3 of them and hid in the house, not daring to go out. Because of this, the 3 of them escaped. According to what you said, those bandits killed all 300 patrol officers. Lin Chen thought of something and asked about the key points. Yep, Lin Chen had read the Shenhua Ya's file before. The next day, the bodies of many patrol officers were indeed found in Bidakang. Basically, all of them died of neck injuries. For this reason, there are inferences in the Shinfuya records. It is said that among this group of bandits, there are people with strong martial arts skills, who are experts in swordsmanship. What about the warehouse manager? Guan Likang is also dead. When Lin Chen heard this, he waved the 3 people to leave. Interesting, Lin Chen whispered and walked all the way to a place on the Bidakang wall. I saw a 3-meter wide gap in the wall here. This gap does not look like it was created by a siege machine, but rather like someone used the power of his palm to directly blast open the wall. This seems to corroborate the article in the Shenhua Yamen file that there are warriors among these bandits. Lin Chen noticed that Yang Ji was also here, with a surprised and uncertain expression. Lin Chen stepped forward and interrupted Yang Ji's thinking. Yang Ji, what did you find? This. It's okay to just say it. When Yang Ji heard this, he immediately bowed slightly and let Lin Chen see the damaged edge of the wall. Lin Chen stretched out his hand, wiped the dust on the wall, and then blew it away. Lord Dutong, this wall is definitely not made of glutinous rice mixed with wall bricks. Yang Ji has family traditions and knowledge, and his eyesight is much higher than that of ordinary military officers. He could tell at a glance that something was not right about the wall. When Lin Chen heard this, a thoughtful look flashed deep in his eyes. Dare to love. This section of the wall is a crude thing. This wall can be knocked down without much external force. In ancient times, there was no cement, so glutinous rice mixed with egg white was often used as a binder. So to say, Lin Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. Bida warehouse was robbed. Was there a mole cooperating? Suddenly, he looked at the huge warehouse behind him. There are also unreasonable places. To be able to evacuate the entire Bida warehouse overnight would require at least 10,000 people to work around the clock. But judging from the situation at the scene, only a few hundred people survived that night. So, is this also a fire dragon burning the warehouse? Lin Chen couldn't help but sneer at the corner of his mouth as he thought of something. The attack by bandits was nothing more than a means of destroying evidence. So who will attack Guankang? Lin Chen immediately had a name in his mind. Hessian, Mr. Hessian. Yang Ji, you stay here and continue to investigate the scene. Lin Chen planned to visit this corrupt official who was famous in history. Yes, Lin Chen rode his horse all the way into the capital. After he sold affordable grain according to the quantity every day, the originally tense atmosphere in the capital suddenly eased, and now it is running again. Various vendors and shops sell goods on the street. When Lin Chen saw this, he dismounted and walked. The residence of a high-ranking official like He Shen is located on the edge of the palace, which is the most prosperous area in the capital. Worth to talk about. Housing prices in the capital are also ridiculously high. The closer to the palace's boundaries, the higher the housing prices. They range from courtyards with 1,000 taels of silver to manors with hundreds of thousands of taels. Lin Chen's outfit was quite eye-catching. Many ordinary people hurriedly saluted after seeing Lin Chen. If it weren't for the governor in front of them, they would never be able to buy cheap food. Lin Chen pretended to turn a blind eye, but shook his head inwardly. In ancient times, people should be more simple after all. Whoever treats them well will be respected. Just as Lin Chen was walking towards the inner city, he was stopped by someone. Lin Dutong. I saw a fancy-dressed boy in a tight navy blue shirt standing in front of Lin Chen. Lin Chen frowned slightly as he looked at the other party's attire. Which boy in this house is dressed more elegantly than an ordinary landlord? What's the matter? Lin Chen said in a slightly cold tone. When the boy heard Lin Chen's emotionless voice, his heart tightened. Thinking again that the man in front of him was a murderer without batting an eyelid, the young man couldn't help but swallow his saliva. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been in a hurry to show off in front of my young mistress. The boy secretly regretted it, but he didn't notice that Lin Chen's eyes were getting more and more impatient. Young man, I am a servant of the Jia family. I have received orders from the young mistress to ask Lin Dutong to go upstairs and talk. Fortunately, the young man had not forgotten the young lady's instructions and stammered. Jia's family. When Lin Chen heard this, he looked around at the young man in front of him. Even the young man's clothes are so delicate and extravagant, no wonder there is a saying, Jia is true, white jade is the gold of the hall, and it is a good year with heavy snow, and pearls are like earth and gold is like iron. But speaking of it, in the eyes of outsiders, the Jia family, which is a two-state family, does have this capital. Lin Chen shook his head slightly and put away the irrelevant things in his mind. Who is this young lady you are talking about? After confirming that someone from the Jia family was looking for him, Lin Chen was a little surprised. Among the younger generation of the Jia family, Jia Lian is the only one who can barely be considered a figure. However, this Jia Lian acted dissolutely and could barely be considered a middle-aged man. Such a person is the face of the Jia family. Lin Chen was cursing in his heart, but it didn't show much on his face, he just nodded lightly. Lead the way. Seeing this, the young man was overjoyed and quickly led Lin Chen to the Xian house. This tea house seems to have borrowed the artistic conception from Li Taibai's poem as its name, which made the bloggers laugh. Lin Chen followed the boy all the way up to the third floor of Xian tea house, and then came to a single room. Lin Dutong, this is it. The boy nodded and bowed. When Lin Chen saw this, he didn't hesitate and just opened the door and walked in. He already had a rough guess in his mind about the young mistress the boy mentioned. Among the people in the Jia family, the only one who could take on the role of young mistress was Feng Lazy and Wang Zifeng. Lin Chen pushed the door open and entered. I saw a beautiful young woman wearing a colorful embroidered flowing cloud skirt, red phoenix eyes, and willow-shaped eyebrows sitting in front of the tea table. What the wide skirt cannot hide is Wang Zifeng's exquisite figure. Should I say that she is worthy of being a woman among the 13 beauties? Lin Chen glanced at Wang Zifeng for a second and then looked away. In his mind, he was more guessing what Wang Zifeng wanted to do with him. Correct. Lin Chen suddenly remembered. Among the grain stores previously inspected, it seemed that the Jia family's store was among them. So, is Wang Zifeng planning to negotiate a relationship from here and get the confiscated grain back? If that's the case, don't blame Lin Chen for sneering because it was just a woman's opinion. Wang Zifeng was also sizing up the ghost-faced commander in front of him. These days I often hear people talking about each other. Especially because of Lin Dutong, Jia Baoyu didn't know what to do with Jia's granddaughter Lin Daiyu. They didn't see each other for this period of time, as if they were outsiders. See you today. This Lin Dutong should be young. Wang Zifeng felt that her eyesight was pretty good. Just look at the Lin Dutong in front of him who has improved in stature and has a cold aura. He is not an easy person to get along with. Wang Zifeng was shocked, thinking that it would not be an easy matter to establish a relationship with such a person. Thinking of this, Wang Zifeng pushed away a box next to him and replaced it with another one. This Wang Zifeng is also good at reading and choosing dishes. But don't want to. After Lin Chen came in, he just looked at Wang Zifeng with a probing look in his eyes. Whoever speaks first will be at a disadvantage. In the end, Wang Zifeng lost her temper. After all, as a woman, it is already rude to be in the same room with a foreigner. If you wait too long and spread the word, you won't be chewed on. Lin Dutong. Thinking of this, Wang Zifeng immediately put on a bright and charming smile and took out a unique box. Open. Oops. Lin Chen looked at the silver ingots in the box, which probably amounted to thousands of taels in total. Lin Dutong, please accept this small tribute, Wang Zifeng said in a rather familiar voice. It seemed as if Lin Chen would give her this face. Indeed, she, Wang Zifeng, not only bears the name of the Jia family, but also the Wang family. Prince Tang was ordered by the new emperor to patrol the 9 sides. This governor of Jubian is a second-grade official. In front of him, Lin Chen was no more than a 6th-grade sesame officer. In the past, middle and low-level military attachés like Lin Chen would not even have a chance to enter the Jia family. It's just that Wang Zifeng has no choice but to calmly maintain relations with the other party since he is blind. Lin Chen didn't even look at the box, but his eyes fell on Wang Zifeng. The latter's body was slightly tight, feeling as if everything he was thinking was being seen through by the other party. Mrs. Wang, this money is free. Lin Chen wanted to know what Wang Zifeng asked him to do, so he went straight to the point. Lin Dutong, among the shops that were sealed before, there is the Jia family's property. Really? When Lin Chen heard what Wang Zifeng said, he knew what the other party's purpose was this time. Mrs. Wang, Your Majesty has classified this case as a solid case. Lin Chen said with a half smile. When Wang Zifeng heard this, the smile on her face froze slightly. That's why she came to Lin Chen just now. Everyone knew that the seized grains were impounded by Lin Chen in the warehouse of the 5 cities soldiers and horses division. The other party wants to take it out a little bit, which is a matter of handwriting. Only, Wang Zifeng's pretty face turned cold when she saw that Lin Chen didn't follow the path at all. Lin Chen made it clear that he would not accept her trick. Wang Zifeng, who was about to use the name of the Jia family to suppress Lin Chen, heard a burst of frolicking next door. Second Master Lian, eat wine, eat wine. Amidst the compliments from the pretty women, the man smiled quite happily. Second Master Lian. When Lin Chen heard the sound, the corners of his mouth twitched. Good guy. Subconsciously, he looked at Wang Zifeng's face. Just looking at this hot lady, her delicate body trembled with anger. Wang Zifeng learned that Jia Lian had gone to Zhongnan to do some business, but he didn't want to be happy in the capital. Second Master, Zhao Hong, I have been serving you for 2 months. Look, I don't even have a piece of jewelry on my hand. 2 months. Wang Zifeng got it right at the right time for Jia Lian to leave home. Okay, I will take you to buy jewelry later. I think the gold bracelet from the Fuguifeng store looks good on you, Zhao Hong. Jia Lian, who was slightly drunk, said with a smile. Lin Chen heard some movement. This is Wang Zifeng twisting the handkerchief making a rattling sound. Now, should I resign? The sordid affair between Jia Lian and Wang Zifeng had nothing to do with him. Immediately, Lin Chen stood up and was about to leave. Seeing Lin Chen trying to leave, Wang Zifeng subconsciously stood up to stop him. It took a lot of effort to invite the other person to meet you. If you miss it this time, it will be difficult to invite him next time. Especially Wang Zifeng, who thought of the importance of that batch of grain to herself, became panicked. Without noticing for a moment, Wang Zifeng kicked the wooden box next to her and fell to the ground. When Lin Chen saw this, he subconsciously reached out and fished it out. But he didn't want the ghostly look on his face to be caught by the cuffs of Wang Zifeng's dress. Lin Chen grabbed the falling ghost face with his other hand and helped Wang Zifeng up with his other hand. Mrs. Wang, please be careful. Lin Chen nodded slightly and was about to let go. Unexpectedly, Wang Zifeng, who was holding her waist, tightened her wrist strength. I didn't expect that Dutong Gimian is also a handsome man. In Lin Chen's arms, Wang Zifeng couldn't help but joke when she saw this. Second Master Lian, don't be here. Fairy, see if I don't take care of you. Suddenly, there was a faint sound from the next door. Now, it was Wang Zifeng's turn to be embarrassed. My husband is messing around next door, but I am currently with a man. Thinking of this, Wang Zifeng's face became frighteningly hot and she was about to get up. Unexpectedly, Lin Chen had no intention of letting go at this time. It's not that he's interested in love, but he just wants to tease this hottie. Wang Zifeng, you don't want Jia Lian to know that you are having a private meeting next door, right? Lin Chen, who deliberately whispered in Wang Zifeng's ear in an ambiguous tone, put a little force on Wang Zifeng's waist. Wang Zifeng was obviously a little panicked after hearing what Lin Chen said. Not only Lin Chen's slightly threatening words, but also the sense of betrayal in his heart. However, the more Wang Zifeng wanted to break free, she felt that her body was unable to use the strength. Wang Zifeng groaned in pain and frowned slightly. Lin Chen looked at Wang Zifeng's ankles with a look of understanding in his eyes. It looks like he sprained his foot just now. Seeing Wang Zifeng's rather uncomfortable look, Lin Chen stopped teasing her and carefully placed her on the ground and sat down. Seeing that Lin Chen's expression returned to a serious look, Wang Zifeng breathed a sigh of relief, but for some reason, she felt a trace of regret in her heart. Eccentric. Wang Zifeng immediately covered her hot face and tried not to look at Lin Chen. Mrs. Wang, you seem to have a sprain. Lin Chen pointed to the left foot under the other party's skirt. Thank you Lin Dutong for your help. Wang Zifeng, who was still pretending that it was nothing, tried to stand up. Lin Chen looked at the other party's movements and twitched the corner of his mouth slightly. Really? Wang Zifeng fell into Lin Chen's arms again, making him wonder if the young woman did it on purpose. This time, Wang Zifeng lost her voice. Have to. When Lin Chen saw this, an inexplicable smile appeared on his lips. Do not move. The aggravated shout made Wang Zifeng's figure stiffen slightly. Then, Wang Zifeng's delicate body trembled when she felt a pair of hot hands on her ankles. In ancient times, women's feet were not allowed to be touched by outsiders. Lin Chen didn't think so much, so he used some internal energy to activate blood circulation and remove blood stasis. Otherwise, Wang Zifeng would never want to go back today. It's just, bursts of tingling pain mixed with some indescribable feeling of relief made Wang Zifeng bite her lower lip and try not to make a sound. Lin Chen was quiet here. On the contrary, some sounds from next door happened to become clearer. This made Wang Zifeng so angry that her chest became round and heaving. I am working hard for the livelihood of the Jia family, and I am even humiliated by my foreign husband. You, Jia Lian, are still interested in flirting with women. To know, Wang Zifeng's temperament is inherently hot, no less than that of ordinary men. In addition, Lin Chen looked handsome in front of him, so he himself was not at a disadvantage. Under all circumstances, Wang Zifeng made a bold decision. Lin Chen noticed Wang Zifeng's buttocks slowly moving towards him. He subconsciously let go of his hands and started to stand up. But don't want to. This Feng Lazy's movements are very coquettish. Mrs. Wang, please respect yourself. Lin Chen's expression changed slightly when he saw this. Ever since he was pushed back by Shangguan Wanner, he vowed not to let anyone oppress him. After this, Lin Chen's breathing became heavier. Tear. Wang Zifeng's eyes widened and her mouth opened slightly, obviously frightened by Lin Chen's actions. Lin Chen picked up Wang Zifeng's round and charming body and started to move. Move, be gentle, you will be heard by the next door. You screamed too loudly. Certainly, Wang Zifeng's voice could not be heard next door. Lin Chen had already used his inner strength to isolate the sound in the room. About an hour passed. Jia Lian next door had already finished and led the outer room away. Cough, cough. Wang Zifeng just felt like drinking water and her throat hurt. I told you to stop shouting so loudly. When Lin Chen saw Wang Zifeng's appearance, he chuckled. The young woman's pretty face was slightly red, but she was not willing to be outdone and looked at Lin Chen. If it were a little girl, she would be blushing at this moment. Of course, Wang Zifeng looked at her torn clothes, her pretty eyebrows slightly raised. Now, she didn't even have the clothes to leave. I'll buy it for you later. When Lin Chen saw this, there was a hint of embarrassment on his face. Wang Zifeng, who rolled her eyes at the man in front of her, still had a hint of spring between her brows. By the way, Lin Dutong, you also took advantage of me. How about returning the batch of grain from Jia Mansion to me? Wang Zifeng knew that if she mentioned the conditions at this time, men would agree. But don't want to. Lin Chen was ruthless and shook his head in refusal. Those two things. Now, it was Wang Zifeng's turn to be dumbfounded. What does this mean to me? Are you losing money and girls? Wang Zifeng, who was a little angry, couldn't help but bite Lin Chen's hand. Only, as an acquired strong man, Lin Chen's skin was soft but hard to be damaged by a sword. Nature. The little woman Wang Zifeng's teeth couldn't bite. However, feeling Lin Chen's eagerness to move, Wang Zifeng was so frightened that she quickly let go. Do it again and she will be exhausted. No, I have to go back to Jia's house right away. Wang Zifeng waved her hands hurriedly. Lin Chen looked at Wang Zifeng's mean little mouth, maybe it had another purpose. Certainly, Lin Chen knew that there was no such opportunity now. Not long after, Lin Chen, who bought a new set of clothes for Wang Zifeng, cleaned up the mess in the room. Smelly man, are you really not willing to help me once? There was a trace of hesitation in Wang Zifeng's eyes. Lin Chen was a little curious. Logically speaking, the food confiscated by the Jia family is only 40,000 shi. Looking at Wang Zifeng's look, she seemed to be in a hurry. The Jia family shouldn't be short of this little money. Lin Chen felt that Wang Zifeng should be hiding something from him about this matter. Immediately, he raised Wang Zifeng's smooth chin and asked this poor little woman. Wang Zifeng, who couldn't resist Lin Chen, had no choice but to tell the truth. This food is all yours. Lin Chen raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. According to Wang Zifeng, she put these grains on consignment at Jia's shop. 40,000 shi of grain is nothing to the Jia family's industry. But Wang Zifeng, a young lady, only has a monthly income of 100 taels of silver. Where did you get so much food? According to Wang Zifeng, she used borrowed money to sell these grains at high prices during the disaster. Now this Jia mansion is only bright on the surface. When Wang Zifeng said this, there was a hint of resentment in her charming eyes. Rong Ning's second mansion has been losing money these years, and I still have to take care of the food, clothing, housing and transportation of thousands of people. Is it easy? Auntie, I have to put a lot of money into it. When Lin Chen heard this, a thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. This complaint does not appear to be false. But he generally knew how true or false Wang Zifeng's words were. Wang Zifeng made a lot of money in the book by contracting lawsuits and lending interest. Lin Chen didn't believe that all the money was for the Jia family. With Wang Zifeng's smart temperament, the most important thing is herself. Of course, Lin Chen didn't intend to expose the cover-up in Wang Zifeng's words, but just asked about the origin of this batch of food. When mentioning this, Wang Zifeng seemed a little hesitant. Forget it, I didn't know that my aunt owed you, my enemy, in my previous life. Wang Zifeng patted Lin Chen moderately. I bought all this food from the Sidong Chamber of Commerce through my connections, and it cost my aunt more than 40,000 taels of silver. Mentioning the more than 40,000 taels of silver, Wang Zifeng felt extremely distressed. This was all the personal money she had saved over the years. She originally thought she could make it back several times, but she didn't expect that it would all be confiscated by Lin Chen. Sidong Chamber of Commerce. A month ago, the Sidong Chamber of Commerce spread the news that it had stockpiled a lot of food. Wang Zifeng said, with a look of pride on her pretty face, ordinary people will never know this news. When Lin Chen heard what Wang Zifeng said, he couldn't help but have a playful expression on his face. How much grain has this Sidong Chamber of Commerce sold? Wang Zifeng was startled when he heard this, and said uncertainly, maybe 100,000 stones. Not to mention why a Chamber of Commerce has so much ready food. Also, why doesn't the Sidong Chamber of Commerce keep these grains and sell them later when the price of grains doubles? Even Wang Zifeng could tell a month ago that food prices were going to rise. Lin Chen didn't believe in these profit-seeking merchants and couldn't figure out the secret behind them. There is only one possibility. That is the Sidong Chamber of Commerce, which is eager to sell this batch of food. Whose path does this Sidong Chamber of Commerce follow? Lin Chen asked Wang Zifeng softly. Whose access? Wang Zifeng suddenly took a deep look at Lin Chen and whispered his name. Prince Duan, Wang Zifeng returned to Jia's house with rather awkward steps, holding a stack of silver notes worth 40,000 taels in her arms. This stinky man still has some conscience. Thinking of everything, Wang Zifeng smiled slightly and seemed to be in a good mood. Young mistress, Ping who was Wang Zifeng's personal maid, had a look of doubt on her beautiful face. When the young lady went out today, was she wearing this kind of clothes? Seemingly noticing Ping scrutinizing eyes, Wang Zifeng frowned and said angrily, why don't you go prepare hot water quickly? I need to take a shower and change clothes. If outsiders saw Wang Zifeng's stern expression, they would probably wonder if there was something about themselves that made the young mistress angry. However, Ping was not afraid at all, and instead pursed his lips and smiled. Yes. Immediately, Ping who returned to the inner room with Wang Zifeng, also noticed something strange about Wang Zifeng's steps. Young lady, what are you doing? My foot is twisted. When Wang Zifeng talked about this, his face turned a little unnaturally red. The maid Ping didn't notice anything was wrong, she just thought that her young mistress was not feeling well today. As a close confidant of Wang Zifeng, Ping knew that it was better not to interfere with some things. It's just that this smart maid would never think that her young mistress would do such a thing with a foreign man. After Wang Zifeng washed herself and changed into regular clothes, she took a sip of tea. Young mistress, your complexion has improved a lot today. Ping combed Wang Zifeng's hair and did not forget to praise her. You're the only one who knows how to talk. Wang Zifeng gave Ping a compliment. Ping yelled at Ku, saying that he was speaking from the bottom of his heart and was not lying. Just when the master and servant were joking, listen to the announcement from the boy outside the house. Second Master Lian is back. Just heard a noise outside the hall. A group of boys walked in, embracing a fair-skinned man with oily hair and pink face. This is the second Master Lian of Rongguo Mansion. If nothing else, Zhao Lian's appearance is considered handsome. Wang Zifeng looked at Zhao Lian, but for some reason, she felt a little bored. At the same time, a few words popped up in my mind. Silver pewter tip. Even on the bed. Pooh. Wang Zifeng, who thought of something, secretly spat, and her expression returned to its normal state. Zhao Lian entered the room with a smile on his face, seemingly very happy, and humming a tune. Came back. Wang Zifeng didn't have a good look on her face. She already knew what her husband had done during this time. When she thought of this, Wang Zifeng became a little angry. Zhao Lian was stunned when he saw Wang Zifeng's unkind expression. Although he didn't know what kind of evil fire the other party had, he could only put a smile on his face and take out the things he had prepared. Look, what I brought back to you from Zhongnan this time. Zhao Lian prides himself on being a romantic, but is it not easy to control Wang Zifeng? Wang Zifeng took a closer look and saw Zhao Lian handing over a white jade finger ring, worth about 100 taels of silver. Seeing this, Wang Zifeng smiled coldly in her heart. Why does this thumb ring look like something from Fuguifeng in Beijing? Wang Zifeng pretended not to know, just to scare Zhao Lian. Really, hearing the words, Fuguifeng, Zhao Lian was so frightened that his back became sweaty. Could it be that his affairs were exposed? But Zhao Lian calmed down immediately. If Wang Zifeng knew what happened to him, he would definitely make him cry, make trouble, and hang himself. How could he be so calm? Zhao Lian comforted himself and just thought it was a coincidence. Ha, ha ha, then Fuguifeng does have a branch in Hangzhou. Seeing Zhao Lian like this, Wang Zifeng was too lazy to say anything. She waved her handkerchief and asked Ping'er to help her up. So how much money did you earn from your trip to Zhongnan? With Ping'er's support, Wang Zifeng lay on her side on the Imperial concubine's couch, half smiling. Hey, I didn't make any money, but my capital was discounted. Zhao Lian pretended to be unlucky, but his eyes fell on Wang Zifeng's exquisite figure. Take a closer look. Zhao Lian just discovered that Wang Zifeng had not been seen for many days, and his skin was moist and smooth, which made him a little moved. Huh, lost your capital. Did you spend it all on Xiaohong? Wang Zifeng didn't expose Zhao Lian, but she didn't have the temper to continue the conversation. Ping'er, you go out first. Zhao Lian swallowed, a little anxious. Wang Zifeng frowned slightly when she saw Zhao Lian pulling at her. Don't touch me, I don't feel well today. Unlucky. Zhao Lian was holding back the evil fire, but he could only walk out of the inner room in frustration. Wang Zifeng won't let him touch it today. Even his long-coveted maid Ping'er and Wang Zifeng were wary of Zhao Lian as if they were wary of thieves. Although in front of outsiders, Zhao Lian is the superior Lian Eri. But inside the house, Wang Zifeng's temper overwhelmed Zhao Lian and refused to let him take a concubine. For Zhao Lian, it would be better to kill him directly. Just when Zhao Lian was feeling a little uncomfortable, the boy next to him said mysteriously, Second Master, I heard that a beautiful cook has come to the kitchen. Do you want to go and have a look? Beautiful cook. Hearing these words, Zhao Lian immediately became angry. Let's go and have a look. According to Wang Zifeng's words, Zhao Lian never refuses beautiful women. The original words are, even if it's dirty or smelly, you won't be afraid to eat it. At the same time, Lin Chen, who had separated from Wang Zifeng before, had no plans to visit Hessian's house. He did not expect that the clues to this case would be obtained from the woman Wang Zifeng. Not only that, Hongxing cheated. Congratulations to the host for getting the reward gift pack. Tisk. Lin Chen looked at the line of text prompted by the system and twitched the corners of his mouth. Open the gift bag. Lin Chen had previously made speculations about what could be obtained from the gift pack. Now you can use this to judge whether it is correct or not. The gift bag has been opened. Obtain 20,000 tons of refined gunpowder. Get 500,000 taels of silver. Obtain 3 sailing battleships from the Great Navigation period. Obtain 1,000 Spanish flintlock muskets. Lin Chen looked at the gift package he got from Wang Zifeng. This confirms my guess, Lin Chen said thoughtfully, but last time it was a rebellion gift package. Is it a grand sailing package this time? He glanced at the sailing battleship inside his backpack. This wooden warship existed during the Great Navigation period and was the capital ship used by maritime powers such as Spain and the United Kingdom at that time. It is about 70 meters long, has a full load displacement of more than 3,000 tons, is equipped with 100 artillery pieces, and can carry 800 crew members. In contrast, Li Tang also had naval vessels in the inland rivers. The most famous one is probably the building ship. Compared with the sailing battleship, the two are almost the same in size, but their different combat environments lead to huge differences in performance. But, if a sailing battleship were placed on an inland river, its terrifying hundreds of cannons would probably not find any opponent. After all, they are not from the same era. The items in this gift package are of little use to Lin Chen right now. The only thing worth noting should be these 1,000 flintlock guns. This thing is hundreds of years more advanced than the matchlock gun that Xiao Zhao gave in the previous gift pack, but currently Lin Chen can't find a good opportunity to use it. Let's see for now. Lin Chen comforted himself and headed towards the Sidong Chamber of Commerce. This Sidong Chamber of Commerce is quite famous in the capital. Because it has relationships with many businesses in Sichuan and Sichuan, it has issued Sidong bills. The so-called four-way bill is actually a type of jiaozi. For a chamber of commerce to be able to issue jiaozi, one can imagine the strength of the other party. Prince Duan. An inexplicable look appeared on Lin Chen's face. Lin Chen knew this King Duan very well. King Duan, named Zhao Ji. Yes, if Lin Chen guessed correctly, it was the famous Song Haozong. Zhao Ji's father was also one of the kings with different surnames entrusted to him by the late Emperor Li Tang. However, compared with the other 6 kings with different surnames, Zhao Ji's father seemed to have learned from the deeds of Emperor Gaozu of the Han Dynasty and decisively handed over military power. From then on, Anshin became a wealthy prince in the capital. It seems that in order to commend his example, Emperor Li Tang continued to reward this prince every year, and also tacitly allowed him to do business. Unexpectedly, the late emperor was already dead before he could raise the knife. I don't know what Zhao Ji's father thought when he heard the news. Certainly, the prince also died of illness in the same year and month, leaving Zhao Ji to inherit the throne. Just as Lin Chen knew Zhao Ji's temperament. I like to draw and write, and even better play Kuju. Now if we want to investigate whether Zhao Ji is related to the Beta warehouse theft case, Li Zhao may not be able to deal with it. After all, King Duan didn't look like a threat. Furthermore, if something happens to King Duan, what will the other 6 kings with different surnames think? Did it give the other side a good excuse to raise troops? No wonder that old fox Zug doesn't want to get involved in this case. Because if this case is not handled well, there is a high probability that Li Zhao will be thrown out as a scapegoat. Don't you see why Chao Kuo, the minister of Emperor Jing of the Han Dynasty? Thinking of this, Lin Chen felt a little troubled. But there are no other clues at the moment, so we can only go to the Sidong Chamber of Commerce to take a look. Lin Chen felt that Li Zhao had some kind of conspiracy in this matter. Otherwise, Shengguan Wan'er would not have been ordered to take charge of the case. Lin Chen, who came all the way to Sidong Chamber of Commerce, raised his head and looked at the attic of a large villa in front of him. In order to show its financial strength, the Sidong Chamber of Commerce also carved a photo out of golden Nanmu. Those 4 big gilded characters, Sidong Chamber of Commerce. You must know that golden Nanmu was a royal tribute in ancient times. It was against the rules for outsiders to use it, and it would punish the 9 tribes. The Sidong Chamber of Commerce did not shy away from this, which shows that King Duan was deeply honored by the late Emperor Li Tang. When the boy from the Chamber of Commerce in front of the door saw Lin Chen coming in, he quickly stepped forward to greet him with a kind attitude. My lord, do you want to withdraw money and goods, or do you want to arrange for the goods to be escorted? Lin Chen couldn't help but be speechless after being introduced by the boy. The businesses covered by this Sidong Chamber of Commerce are so complete. Deposit your silver and withdraw it with a 4-way bill of exchange. It can also detain valuables. If it is lost, Sidong Chamber of Commerce will compensate twice as much. There is even a business similar to express delivery. It is also commonly known as escort in ancient times. After listening to the boy's description, Lin Chen had a hint of surprise in his eyes. But, when the young man saw that Lin Chen was indifferent, he understood. "My lord, please go to the second floor to discuss this in detail." Immediately, the servant led Lin Chen to the second floor. Just look at the second floor. The interior is more luxurious and quieter than the first floor, with fewer guests. Various antiques and ornaments serve as free ornaments. Seeing this, you can see how wealthy the Sidong Chamber of Commerce is. Lin Chen suddenly noticed that there was a group of martial arts people on the second floor. This was the first time Lin Chen saw a martial artist in the capital. Just look at this group of martial arts people wearing uniform light white cotton robes and swords at their waists. Especially the two leaders of this group of martial arts people. One male and one female. Lin Chen looked at the man who was about middle-aged, elegant, and had a straight face. He was also wearing a robe. Next to this middle-aged man, there is a woman who is quite beautiful. The elegant man's senses were also quite keen. After noticing Lin Chen's scrutinizing gaze, he nodded and smiled. Lin Chen saw this and politely returned the gift. But see, among these martial arts people, there was a handsome young man with a sad expression, as if he had a deep grudge against someone. I saw this young man talking to the shopkeeper of Sidong Chamber of Commerce. The shopkeeper looked helpless, while the young man was trembling and clenching his fists. "You said these banknotes are the only things my father has in custody here." When the shopkeeper heard this, the corners of his mouth twitched. "Good guy. These banknotes amount to 100,000 taels, which is more money than an ordinary person can spend in a lifetime." However, thinking that this young man was the only surviving son of his old friend, he said kindly, "Master Lin, I'm sorry about your father. This time, my father took the escort from your Sidong Chamber of Commerce, and the one who attacked the Fuwei Escort Bureau was from the Qingcheng faction." The young man called Master Lin said with a look of reluctance. Obviously, he is well aware of the monstrous background of Sidong Chamber of Commerce. If the Sidong Chamber of Commerce is willing to take action, he can avenge his family's destruction. However, when the shopkeeper of Sidong Chamber of Commerce heard this, his expression was still slightly cold. "Master Lin, our Sidong Chamber of Commerce is just a businessman and does not get involved in the fighting and killing of the martial arts. For murder cases involving people in the martial arts, you have to go to the Shenhua Yamen." Master Lin wanted to say something more, but was patted on the shoulder by the elegant man next to him. "Pingji." The middle-aged man shook his head and motioned for him to calm down. As an acquired martial artist, Lin Chen had clear ears and clear eyesight, so he could naturally hear their conversation easily. Lin Chen couldn't help but have a strange look in his eyes. He felt that the group of people in front of him were also old acquaintances. That middle-aged man is the famous gentleman Jian Yu Bukchun. The people behind him are all disciples of the Washan sect. As for the young man, Lin Chen thought about the other person's life experience and sighed secretly. But at this moment, he wanted to see the protagonist, Lingu Chong, how handsome he looked. However, now Yu Bukchun has brought Lin Pingji to the capital. The so-called original plot has long been fragmented and has no reference value. Interesting. Suddenly there was a sound of praise. I saw a group of people walking down from the third floor of Sidong Chamber of Commerce. Looking again at the young man in a luxurious brocade robe, he put away his folding fan and clapped softly. This young man has a beautiful and tender face, and his eyes are like those of a fox, with an agility and cunning that ordinary people cannot see through. Not only that, behind this young man was a group of people who were dressed strangely and did not look like people from the Central Plains. They are also a group of warriors. The shopkeeper turned his head, saw the young man, and trotted forward to say hello. "Master, why are you down here? If I don't come down, won't I miss the opportunity to meet the gentleman, Mr. Jianyu?" Yu Bukchun was not surprised when the other party mentioned him. The name Junzi Sword is very famous to ordinary martial arts people. "May I ask who this young master is?" Next to Zhao Ming, son of Prince Duan. Upon hearing this, Yu Bukchun quickly saluted. Unexpectedly, the person in front of me turned out to be a young prince. Even though Yu Bukchun was quite prestigious in the world, he didn't dare to show off in front of the other party. On the contrary, at this time, Lin Chen's expression on his ghostly face was very exciting. He had felt something was wrong with that young man before. Just like Xiao Jiaonu disguised herself as a man. Especially after hearing the other party's name, Lin Chen couldn't remember any of Zhao Ji's sons named Zhao Ming. Of course, it could also be a fake name. Boy, you said that your Lin family was wiped out by people from the Qingcheng faction. Zhao Ming said before that he was visiting Yu Bukchun. But he was particularly interested in what Lin Pingji said before. When Lin Pingji heard this, a glimmer of hope rose again in his eyes. If this young prince is willing to help, only. No one present noticed that Yu Bukchun clenched his hands when he heard what the young prince said. Exactly. The leader of the Qingcheng sect, Yu Kanghai, plotted against my family to pass down the martial arts to ward off evil spirits, and he just made the move to exterminate the family. Lin Pingji quickly explained what had happened and continued. Thanks to the rescue of Mr. Yu and the 4 famous arresters, I was able to escape from trouble. Mr. Yu, is it really consistent with what Master Lin said? Zhao Ming looked at Yu Bukchun with a half-smile. But he saw Yu Bukchun frowning slightly, with an expression that said he could not frame the leader of another sect at will just because of the speculation. At this time, Yu knows very little, and it is not yet clear whether it was Master Yu who did it. Hearing this, Zhao Ming clapped his folding fan in his hands, a look of thought on his handsome face. That's right, Qingcheng sect can be regarded as an honest sect from Sichuan and Sichuan. How could they do such a despicable thing? Zhao Ming, who seemed to be talking to himself, suddenly looked towards Lin Chen. My young master has often heard these days that the new governor of the 5 cities military and horse division, Mr. Lin Dutong, is very aware of everything he does. Do you have any thoughts on this? Lin Chen, who was still acting as a backdrop, didn't expect that Zhao Ming would point the finger at him. I've met the young prince. Now that his identity was revealed, Lin Chen naturally bowed slightly. It's him. Suddenly, a pretty female voice shouted in surprise. Ling don't be rude. Yu Bukchun couldn't help scolding his daughter when he saw her losing her temper. Lin Chen looked over. I saw a girl with something smeared on her face, pretending to be gray and ugly, sticking out her tongue. Is this Yu Lingshan? Lin Chen was thoughtful. The young prince praised me very much, but Lin doesn't know much about Zhonghu. The implication was that Lin Chen did not intend to say anything about this matter. But this Zhao Ming seemed a little reluctant. Then Lin Dutong, can you take off your mask and take a look? Zhao Ming said with great interest, as if he was very interested in Lin Chen's true face. Lin Chen had not taken off his mask before in the main hall, and the fact that he claimed to be ugly had already spread among the bad guys. You look ugly down there. So what if it's ugly? How about Lin Dutong satisfies my curiosity? Zhao Ming said with a smile. I'm sorry to refuse. Joke. If you really let people see what you look like, there will be a lot of trouble in the palace from now on. I thought Zhao Ming would stop mentioning this matter because of his polite refusal. No idea. Zhao Ming's expression changed and he said coldly, Ah San. I saw the strong man dressed as a monk behind Zhao Ming move. A top-notch expert. There were all warriors present, and they could see at a glance the internal energy fluctuations of the man whom Zhao Ming called Ah San when he took action. Yu Bukchun looked at Zhao Ming inexplicably, his eyes slightly focused. This young prince seems kind, but his personality is erratic and unpredictable. It was clear that we had a very pleasant conversation just now, but just because of the polite refusal, he let his subordinates take action. It's best not to mess with this kind of person. Father. Hearing his daughter's whisper, Yu Bukchun shook his head slightly. What are the external methods of Shaolin Temple? Even Yu Bukchun thought that Lin Dutong would end up in a mess. But he saw that the other party's tone was calm and he was interested in pointing out the origin of the other party's skills. The man called Ah San narrowed his eyes. His grappling move failed. Bo. Lin Chen grabbed Ah San's neck, calmly pushed him down on one knee, and sat on him. In just a moment, most people present did not realize what happened. Well, the man who was called Ah San's internal energy surged crazily and tried to struggle away from Lin Chen's hand. However, Lin Chen's white and slender palms were like pliers made of fine iron, motionless. When Yu Bukchun saw this, his pupils suddenly shrank. You know, this Ah San is a first-rate master. Judging from the endless and strong internal energy in the opponent's body, he is still the best among first-class warriors. I never thought that in the hands of this court military attaché whose voice sounded like he was in his early 20s at most, he would be as weak as a chicken. That is to say, the Lin Dutong in front of him is definitely an acquired warrior. Ah San. The group of people behind Zhao Ming all looked fierce and wanted to step forward to help. Suddenly, Zhao Ming opened the folding fan in his hand and stopped his men's movements, revealing a solemn look in his cunning eyes. Obviously, he didn't expect Lin Chen to be an acquired warrior. This kind of person is a rare master in the entire palace and court. Even among the people in the martial arts world that Zhao Ming had spared no effort to recruit over the years, none of them had such a strong figure. Ah San is already a strong one among his men. Lin Dutong, Xiao Wang is rude. Zhao Ming apologized with a chuckle. Lin Chen looked at Zhao Ming, who was respectfully apologizing in front of him, and felt that he could bend and stretch, but it was not enough. Next moment, Lin Chen stepped on the 6 Yao steps and came to Zhao Ming as if sneaking up, his fingertips slightly tapping on the opponent's wrist. The folding fan escaped from Zhao Ming's hand and was then held by Lin Chen. Young master, you know that an apology must be sincere, Lin Chen said in an indifferent tone. Zhao Ming's men were loyal, and when they saw this scene, they all had angry expressions on their faces, as if they were about to come up and fight Lin Chen to the death. Stay here. Zhao Ming raised his hand and shouted to his subordinates to stop their actions. These fools. He cursed Zhao Ming in his heart for being too stupid. At such a close distance, the acquired warrior didn't have to waste much time trying to kill him. Lin Chen originally thought that Zhao Ming would appear a little embarrassed under the pressure of his momentum. But he didn't expect the other party to smile. Xiao Wang knows that he must be sincere in his apology. What do Lin Dutong think of this file? Lin Chen subconsciously took it and glanced at it. Then, Lin Chen, whose eyes were slightly focused, looked up at Zhao Ming, who seemed to have everything under control. This dossier, on it was written the name of someone who, like Wang Zifeng, bought a large amount of grain from the Sidong Chamber of Commerce. Wang Zifeng's name was prominently listed. In particular, Lin Chen noticed the amount of grain purchased in Wang Zifeng's name, totaling 30,000 taels of silver. Okay, this woman is still thinking about falsely reporting the amount at this time. Lin Chenggui's mouth twitched slightly, thinking that he would teach Wang Zifeng a lesson next time we meet again. After Lin Chen came back to his senses, there was a hint of solemnity in his eyes as he looked at Zhao Ming in front of him. Apparently, Zhao Ming had prepared this file a long time ago and was waiting for him to come to the door. It seems that the other party has got the information from somewhere and wants to get rid of the Beta warehouse grain theft case. This guy is not simple. After Lin Chen took a deep look at the other party, he returned the folding fan to Zhao Ming. Where are the rest of the files? The file in his hand was obviously incomplete. Lin Dutong, if you want the later files, the price will be different. Zhao Ming had a joking smile on his face. Xiao Wang has prepared tea and is waiting for Lin Dutong to arrive. After Zhao Ming said that, he turned around and went up to the 3rd floor, leaving the 2nd floor to Lin Chen and the Washan group. Go upstairs. Lin Chen wasn't afraid of any traps. Not to mention that the acquired realm gave Lin Chen the confidence. Furthermore, by ambushing himself, a court official, wouldn't the Duanwang family be afraid of arousing the new emperor's suspicion? As for Zhao Ming, Zhao Min. Lin Chen chuckled in his heart and shook his head inexplicably. The other party's behavior made Lin Chen even more convinced of the other party's identity. I immediately planned to go to the banquet, but was stopped when I didn't want to. Wait a moment, Lin Dutong. Yu Bukchun stopped Lin Chen in a kind manner. Lin Chen just turned his attention to Yu Bukchun. There seems to be no communication between you and the other party, right? Looking at Yu Bukchun, he has already attracted Lin Pingji among the disciples of Washan, and he may have started plotting the evil repelling sword technique. Lin Chen suddenly felt a bad taste in his heart and considered whether to tell Yu Bukchun in public that he could only practice the sword technique to ward off evil in the palace. From a certain perspective, Yu Bukchun is a very understandable character. It is nothing more than reviving the Washan sect. The title, Jun Zijian, was coined by Yu Bukchun for decades to gain fame in the world. But after the name became useless, Yu Bukchun saw clearly the essence of martial arts. That is strength. Just now, Yu Bukchun had set his sights on the evil fighting swordsmanship that had conquered all the invincible opponents in the world. But, in this complicated world of mixed martial arts, Lin Chen was not sure whether Yu Bukchun would still be dedicated to warding off evil swordsmanship. Because in today's martial arts world, this evil fighting sword technique is an acquired martial arts secret book. There are many martial arts secrets that are more powerful than evil-proof swordsmanship. Lin Chen suddenly thought. In fact, Yu Bukchun is a good choice as a thug. The opponent just wants to revive Washan, so maybe he can take advantage of it. Master Yu. Lin Chen put away his thoughts and acted politely. May I ask Master Yu what's wrong? Before Yu Bukchun could say anything, the ugly Yu Lingshan walked out excitedly, revealing the jade bracelet on her wrist. You are Lin Dutong. Thanks to Lin Dutong, I can find what I lost. The jade bracelet on Yu Lingshan's wrist was passed down from her grandmother and is very precious. But don't want to. This chivalrous girl from the Washan sect suffered a loss from a few thieves and had her jade bracelet stolen. When Lin Chen heard this, a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. It's a coincidence. The group of thieves hid in the camp of the victims, and were later discovered by Lin Chen. The stolen goods were naturally recovered. So do they have such a reason? Lin Chen nodded thoughtfully, but his eyes inadvertently fell on Yu Lingshan's smooth and slender wrist. This is different from the skin color that Yu Lingshan deliberately blackened. Yu Lingshan, who noticed where Lin Chen was looking, couldn't help but blush, and quickly put down her hand. Lingshan, don't be rude. Yu Bukchun felt a little headache when he saw his out-of-character daughter. I see, this is the responsibility of the pontifex, Master Yu doesn't have to be so polite. Lin Chen said with a chuckle. At the same time, he also noticed that Lin Pingji was looking at him eagerly. Lin Chen just thought of what Zhao Min said earlier and asked himself about Lin Pingji's family being exterminated. Lin Ping's passion was all for revenge, so he naturally put his hope in Lin Chen. It's true that I don't know anything about the Lin family. Lin Chen changed the topic, but I have heard that 4 famous arrests have gone south to the south of the Yangtze River to investigate the murder case of the Lin family. This was also what surprised Lin Chen. Logically speaking, Lin Pingji should be protected by the 4 famous arrests, so why is he still in the capital with Yu Bukchun? 4 famous arrests. Lin Pingji had a look of confusion on his face. It seems he didn't know about it. Upon seeing this, Yu Bukchun immediately came forward and said, Lin Dutong, you saved Pingji who was being chased. After learning that his parents had a will, he asked him to come to the Saidong Chamber of Commerce in the capital to pick up something. So that was it. Lin Chen had a thoughtful look on his face. It seems that Yu Bukchun wanted to know whether the thing mentioned in Lin Ping's parents' will was an evil fighting sword technique, so he secretly brought him here. From this point of view, the 4 famous catchers and Lin Pingji just missed it. Thinking of this, Lin Chen said with a hint of relief in his tone, Master Lin, I think the 4 famous arrests will investigate the murderer of the Lin family murder case. After hearing Lin Chen's words, Lin Pingji's face became brighter. Apparently he had also heard about the 4 famous arrests. Seeing this, Lin Chen said no more and turned around to go upstairs. But don't want to. Lin Pingji's eyes revealed the determination after serious consideration. Under Lin Chen's stunned gaze, Lin Pingji walked straight to Lin Chen, knelt down and banged his head 3 times. Lin Dutong, this little man's family is ruined now. I only ask Lord Dutong to take you in. I am willing to be a pawn and serve you. Yu Bukchun, Lin Chen, what's happening here? It seemed that he had easily captured Ah San before, and it was already known that he was an acquired warrior. At the same time, as a military attaché of the Imperial court, he also allowed Lin Pingji to see a different path of revenge. Originally, Lin Pingji planned to join the Washan sect and practice martial arts for revenge. However, after getting in touch during this time, Lin Pingji discovered with sadness and indignation. With his qualifications, even if he had practiced in Washan for more than 10 years, he would most likely not be a match for Yu Kanghai. In addition, Lin Pingji also learned about Yu Bukchun's reputation in the world. Gentleman's sword. In other words, it was impossible for Lin Pingji to let Yu Bukchun, as a master, attack the Qingcheng sect, which was also an upright sect. The combination of various coincidences allowed Lin Pingji to make such a choice. Lin Chen was speechless for a moment and looked at Yu Bukchun with his peripheral vision. Really? The gentle smile on the other person's face froze. This feeling is like a cooked duck, but someone else got there first. Lin Chen couldn't help but sigh when he heard Lin Pingji's heavy kowtow. Whatever. You get up first. Lin Chen waved his sleeves, and Lin Pingji found that his body was being lifted up by some force. In that case, you go to the 5 cities military and horse division to report. Under his own hands. At least Lin Pingji won't end up like a human being or a ghost in the end. Thank you, Lord Dutong. Lin Pingji was overjoyed when he heard this. When Lin Chen saw this, he reminded him, don't forget Master Yu's life-saving grace. Lin Pingji suddenly realized, and then picked up the banknote that the shopkeeper of Saidong Chamber of Commerce brought earlier. Master Yu, I can't repay the kindness of saving my life, please accept this money. This stack of banknotes amounts to 70,000 taels. It's enough to repay the kindness of saving my life. Yu Buchan's hand brushing his beard couldn't help but increase the force, but he couldn't let anyone see the flaw. Idiot, Yu Bukchun, who pretended to sigh, did not move. It was Ning Zong's, the master's wife, who came forward to comfort her. Saying that Yu Bukchun saved people's lives was not for financial gain. Indeed, in Ning Zongzi's view, her husband is such a noble person. However, Lin Pingji's attitude was resolute, as if he would not get up unless he accepted the money. At this time, Ning Zong's had just accepted the banknote, and Lin Pingji also said goodbye to the Washan disciples, saying frankly that they had been taken care of a lot during this time. This scene seemed warm and harmonious to outsiders. If word spreads, it will be a good story. Yu Bukchun and his party left. Yu Lingshan, on the other hand, turned back 3 times with each step and stopped talking. Finally, he was pulled by his mother Ning Zong's and left the Saidong Chamber of Commerce. Linger, do you know that those of us in the martial arts community must remember to stay away from court officials? Yu Lingshan, whose mouth was raised, obviously did not agree with what her mother said. Seeing his daughter like this, Ning Zhong joked, "What? You went out and forgot about your senior brother?" Hearing this, Yu Lingshan showed hesitation on her face. If she could, she wanted them all. It's a pity that she is still a little girl now and cannot make adult choices. Lin Chen looked at Lin Pingji and saw the respectful attitude on his face. Interesting. Lin Chen suddenly laughed. How do you know that Yu Bukchun also wants your Lin family's evil fighting swordsmanship? When Lin Pingji heard this, his head bowed even further. People from the martial arts world cannot be trusted. When Lin Pingji said these words, his tone seemed to have a hint of gritted teeth. Whether it was Yu Kanghai who killed his whole family, or his grandfather's golden sword. Hearing this, Lin Chen shook his head inconspicuously. Obviously, the boy in front of him has gone to an extreme due to various experiences. Then aren't you worried that our leader wants your Lin family's evil fighting swordsmanship? Lin Chen couldn't help but joked. If the emperor wants it, I'm willing to give it to you. No need, I don't want to commit suicide. Under Lin Pingji's stunned face, who suddenly raised his head, Lin Chen told the truth about the so-called evil fighting sword technique. Did you know that this evil fighting sword technique was born out of the profound martial arts in the Imperial Palace, the Sunflower Book? This Sunflower Book was created by the eunuchs of the previous dynasty. Those who practice it must cut off their descendants' roots. Lin Chen looked at Lin Pingji playfully. If you want to practice the Sunflower Book, I have a way to send you to the palace. Hearing this, Lin Pingji shuddered all over and shook his head. This little man is the only child of the Lin family, and he still has to pass on his bloodline. Lin Pingji said cautiously, fearing that Lin Chen would really send him to the palace. At this time, Lin Pingji obviously did not have the determination to commit suicide. In this case, you go to the 5 cities military and horse division to report first, and someone will naturally receive you. Yes, Lin Chen looked at Lin Pingji's leaving back before heading towards the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor occupies a smaller area than the 2nd floor, with only an elegantly decorated tea pavilion. Zhao Ming, who was shaking a fan and enjoying tea, still behaved like a rich man. Lin Dutong, you have kept Xiao Wang waiting for a long time. Lin Chen said nothing, just walked to the tea table and sat down, picked up the tea and drank it in one gulp. Zhao Ming frowned slightly when he saw this. Lin Dutong doesn't understand tea. That tone seemed to be blaming Lin Chen for chewing peonies. Isn't this tea for people to quench their thirst? Lin Chen said calmly. Hearing this, Zhao Ming couldn't help but show approval on his face. Then Lin Dutong isn't afraid of Xiao Wang poisoning him. Zhao Ming, who covered his mouth and smiled, looked a little girly in his movements. If you are an outsider, you will only curse in your heart. However, Lin Chen knew that Zhao Ming was originally a girl. Lin Chen didn't want to say anything more to a fox like Zhao Min, so he went straight to the point. Little prince, I guess you already know that the grain that your Sidong Chamber of Commerce sold previously was the official grain of Bidakang, right? Good. Zhao Min didn't hide anything and immediately smiled and nodded. Stealing and selling official food is a crime of confiscating the house. Lin Chen said scary words in a calm tone. At this time, there was a strange movement on the screen outside the tea pavilion. But when Zhao Min raised his hand to signal, the strange movement stopped. Are there any swordsmen? It's just that the servants are worried that Xiao Wang is in danger. Zhao Min said lightly and poured another cup of tea for Lin Chen. Does Lin Dutong know that our Sidong Chamber of Commerce never asks customers about their origins? What they want to buy has nothing to do with the Chamber of Commerce. In other words, Sidong Chamber of Commerce did not know. Lin Chen obviously didn't believe what Zhao Min said. Judging from the files that the other party had already prepared, Zhao Min must know the origin of these grains. He just concealed it and didn't report it, and seemed to have his own agenda. TCH, boring. Zhao Min kept staring at Lin Chen, but because of the ghost face covering his face, Zhao Min couldn't see the change in Lin Chen's expression at all. Somewhat disinterested, she had no choice but to take out a file from her arms and hand it to Lin Chen. Lin Chen took it, and with his extraordinary senses, he could smell the fragrance and smell of sweat on the file. Who says girls don't sweat? Lin Chen, who was slandering in his heart, immediately looked over. This dossier is very complete. At the same time, Lin Chen was shocked that the Sidong Chamber of Commerce did a wide range of business. This batch of grain shipped from Bidakang amounted to 300,000 dan. Among them, 100,000 stones were bought to the nobles in the capital. Lin Chen noticed. The remaining 200,000 stones were all transported out of the capital through the canal by the Sidong Chamber of Commerce as required. Where was this batch of food transported? The following dossier has no further content. Lin Dutong, this is not under the control of our Sidong Chamber of Commerce. Zhao Min said with a smile. After all, the commission the Sidong Chamber of Commerce received was just to deliver food out of the city. Lin Chen frowned slightly, but Zhao Min hadn't finished speaking. Xiao Wang himself can provide Lin Dutong with a piece of information. Condition. When Lin Chen heard this, he said these two words without hesitation. It's very simple. Lin Dutong can just finish the glass of wine. Zhao Min picked up the teapot and poured fragrant wine into Lin Chen's cup. Lin Chen. He knew very well that Zhao Min must be playing tricks. But Lin Chen picked up the drink and drank it all in one gulp. Lin Chen quietly circulated the internal energy in his body. This yang control technique made Lin Chen's poison resistance fully maxed out. Lin Chen thought that something had been slipped into the drink, but found that there was nothing. Just a simple glass of wine. Lin Chen was speechless, just took the note handed by Zhao Min, stood up and left. Lin Dutong. Suddenly, Lin Chen, who had just arrived at the door of Sidong Chamber of Commerce, heard an inexplicable smile rising from the corner of Zhao Min's lips on the third floor. Well, Lin Chen, who subconsciously covered his heart, had an ugly look on his face. The sudden turmoil of internal energy made Lin Chen suffer a hidden loss. Lin Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and left expressionlessly. He secretly said in his heart, don't let Zhao Min fall into his hands. The drink is indeed non-toxic. But there was something strange about the cup of tea that Zhao Min poured. There was also something dropped on the file that was taken out from Zhao Min's arms. The two were mixed and then stimulated by alcohol to produce toxicity. This Zhao Min has never been a person who is willing to suffer losses. He will try every means to find a way to regain his position with Lin Chen. But the note Zhao Min gave to Lin Chen did indeed contain an address outside the capital. This address is located on a branch of Kaochu. According to what Zhao Min wrote, There is a water village deep in a certain river on that branch. All the official rations that were shipped out were stored here. Why? When Lin Chen thought of this, there was confusion in his eyes. This behavior does not look like corrupt officials like He Shen want to sell grain at high prices. Instead, I want to place it here, waiting for something. Lin Chen, who didn't know why, planned to tell Shangguan Wan'er the news and send Navy soldiers to eliminate it. This water village is located deep in the canal, and the water army needs to be dispatched to do it. Just when Lin Chen returned to the 5 cities military and horse division, he saw Yang Ji, Wei Cheng and other commanders looking anxious. After seeing Lin Chen, he rushed over. Lord Tong, something serious has happened. Why panic? When Lin Chen saw his subordinates acting like this, he couldn't help but scolded him in a deep voice. Yang Ji, tell me. Yes, Lord Dutong, there is a group of people in Gyeonggi who are killing the victims of the disaster in their hometowns and looting the county town. When Lin Chen heard this, his eyes suddenly shrank. He got it. Why did he steal the official grain from Bidakang and then put it in Kaochu? One is to make the capital run out of food for disaster relief, and the other is to let nobles sell food at high prices to arouse public resentment. The purpose is to lead hundreds of thousands of disaster victims to stage a vigorous rebellion in the Gyeonggi region. At that time, these 200,000 stones of food will be the food for the army of disaster victims. People who are crazy about hunger will do anything as long as they have a mouthful of food. The so-called slogan of, "No birth old mother," and, "Empty home," is the teaching of the White Lotus sect. The White Lotus sect, from a certain perspective, is a professional rebel. In ancient times, no matter what dynasty, as long as there was an opportunity, there would be a group of people who would rebel under the slogan, Wu Sheng Lao Mu. Does your majesty know about this? It is known that the troops of the 5 cities are ordered to go out of the city to suppress the bandits. Where is the capital camp? Lin Chen's face turned cold when he heard this. There are more than 100,000 people in the Beijing camp, and it should not be the turn of the Wuchang Army and Horses Division to have thousands of people. When Yang Ji heard this, he shook his head blankly. He also didn't understand why the 5 cities soldiers and Horses Division were sent out by the emperor to suppress bandits. Nowadays, the number of victims is so large that tens of thousands of people can easily escape. The thousands of people in their 5 cities military and horse division are simply not enough to look at. Lin Chen now understood why Wei Cheng, Yang Ji and others were so anxious. I will go to the palace immediately to meet the saint. Lin Chen ordered someone to pull the horse, and suddenly his body froze. How many victims are there outside the city now? When Yang Ji and others heard this, they looked at each other in shock. I don't understand why Lord Tutong still cares about this at this time. In total, it's about hundreds of thousands. There were so many victims. Fortunately, Lin Chen sent out troops from 5 cities to maintain order and provided porridge every day, so no trouble was caused. Go and recruit soldiers. Follow the previous conditions for recruiting soldiers from the 5 cities soldiers and horses division. What? Wei Cheng and others were stunned. Yang Ji finally realized something and his eyes lit up. Lord Dutong, how many recruitments are there? At least 20,000. Seeing that Yang Ji understood what he meant, Lin Chen said without looking back. I saw that my master Dutong was nowhere to be seen. Wei Cheng and others just asked Yang Ji. Why does Lord Capital want me to wait to recruit soldiers? Isn't the 5 cities military and horse divisions quota limited to 5,000 soldiers? When Yang Ji heard this, he said angrily, do you and I have the confidence to use 5,000 people to annihilate the White Lotus sect in Gyeonggi? Wei Cheng shook his head subconsciously. That's all right, I'll go recruit troops as soon as possible. If it's too late, it'll be too late. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.